Hello and happy Tuesday to all the ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, otters, and pups out there from all corners of the internet. Thank you for joining us tonight for week number 5 of BOL Emerald Season 12. Our entertainment for you this evening consists, of course, of another episode of Otter Talk to start off the stream. We have another group of glorious guests gathered from across the league to discuss current power rankings as well as this week's matchups. Later on, the main event will be your regularly scheduled best of 3 between two teams that are fighting for a playoff spot in the Noxus division. Final Boss Rebirth versus TFF Aftershock. More on that later. For now, let's meet our guests. Guys, let's go from left to right according to how we are organized here on the stream. So please give us your IGN, who you're playing for, and an assessment of how your respective teams are doing so far compared to your own preseason expectations. I am, of course, your host, Crewman44, excited to be here for another week of action, and I do believe we're going to be starting with you first, Chris.
Well, I'm Chris, and I was the jungler for Optimal Esports Enigma. Our season obviously didn't go as planned. Considering I just got dropped and have been picked up by a better team, so we're here.
Amazing. Okay. Happy to hear that for you, Chris. But let's move on for now over to Cam.
Hello, I'm Cam. I am also, my IGN is Ferromancy. I'm the support for Little Monkeys Reformed. We are currently going really good in the league, and we kind of just, we didn't have much expectations going in. I mean, we knew we'd contend very well, but we never really played together much, so we're just taking the day as they come.
Well, sounds like that strategy's working out really well for you. But last but not least, CZI.
Yeah, what's up? CZI. I play for Elysium on Ice, top lane. The split's going good for us. We're undefeated right now. Tonight's a banger matchup between us and Tilt. Must watch game. Out of a first. But yeah, I'm having a great time. It's glad to be here.
Yeah, I admit, part of me does wish that we were actually going to be treated to that matchup on tonight's stream instead of what we do have on the schedule. But fair is fair. Got to hit all these different divisions and make sure that everybody is getting their time on the stream. So absolutely fine. Let's go ahead and move on over to power rankings. So let's see what our producer has queued up for us first. Looks like we're going to be starting off in the Freljord tonight, boys. So starting with my own power rankings here, I do have Tilt Esports still up there in first place. The defending champions, of course, they've been having a great season so far. Looks like we are all aligned there, as well as that Elysium on Ice spot in second. Looks like you guys have that one locked down pretty nicely, at least according to everyone's power rankings here, CZI. 100%. I do have Mint in third. It looks like we're all aligned there once again. TTM in fourth. We've got the Thunder Raptors in fifth after picking up a win over the Clowns last week. Clown Gaming in sixth, and the Zebras down there in seventh. Let's go over to you next, Mr. CZI. Your rankings, please.
Well, it's obvious that Tilt's gonna be number one. They're like defending champs. I'm not gonna ego and put us over them yet. I gotta see if we can beat them first. I'm trying to jinx this, but honestly, I think TTM. Putting them at 4 for me is I don't know, because the Elysian team, they're looking decent too, and I think they could win against TTM. I think it's gonna be close, but I think they're gonna win. So
it's a definite possibility. Let me just really quickly pull up and see when that matchup is happening. Do you know, CZI?
I swear I was just seeing that too.
That is going to be next week. Elysian Thunder Raptors versus TTM Aegon is going to be the week number 6 matchup. So definitely going to be interesting.
It's going to matter.
Yeah, what happens? Absolutely. Yeah, that could be the playoff spot right there that they're fighting for. So definitely keeping our eyes peeled out for that one. But let's keep on moving along. Cam, you are up next.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think mine is too crazy. I mean, apart from, all of ours are very similar, but Tilt Esports, it's hard to not put them first, they're just completely dominant. But it feels pretty standard. Maybe a few positions change here or there, but I don't see any crazy differences happening.
Fair enough. Yeah, I noticed all of you guys actually have the Clowns down there in last place.
Oh,
which
they
I guess is
suck.
fair. Yeah,
They
no,
have
did
like they have
lose,
a
to both the
rotating
other bottom
roster
two
of
teams.
they just have a rotating roster of piss. So it's like
Look, I knew they were gonna be cooked when they were like so confident because they were doing really good at LXC, and then when they got over here, that roster is not the one over here, and I was like, oh well, I know what's gonna happen already, but
on top of that, LXC is also like a lot
easier.
less hard or easier than BOL ever will be. So it's like you're going from this like Mickey Mouse league, and now you're playing an actual like real league, and you're getting shit on for it because you're overconfident, and I don't know.
Well, maybe
It's crazy.
you know, a little bit more grounded now. Maybe there's still time to bounce back. I don't know.
I don't know. No, there's not.
Well, Chris,
not.
Are there any other teams from the Failure division here that you wanted to touch on or give your perspective on?
I'm gonna be real. I honestly haven't paid attention to anybody else but Ionia, but for the most part, it seems like we do agree on like the top 5, or mostly our entire power rankings. Obviously,
Yeah,
there's no real like. There's no real diversity in the rankings, so it's like I don't think there's anything really to comment on.
Yeah, fair enough. I did want to sort of throw one thing out there for everybody to consider. You know, we did have Taunty2K as the top laner for TTM. Was a guest on Otter Talk earlier on in the season, one of our previous episodes, and he was talking about how he was predicting his own team, TTM Aegeon, to finish second in this division behind Tilt Esports. So I wanted to see if would you like to elaborate a little bit maybe on why that's not happening?
Well, predictions are good to have, you know, it's good for content, but if we're being realistic, come on. You got a yap to keep the confidence up. That's what yap is for. So his yap didn't work, it happens, you know, it happens to the best of us. Because at the end of the day, if you yap, you got to prove it in the game. And he didn't do it last week, you know. They even gave him all the ganks he needed, and guess what happened? Nothing. So.
Well, TTM, they are playing up against the Hydro Pump Zebras tonight. So, you know, that hopefully should be a win for them. So maybe they can pick up, you know, that win and at least get themselves into that top 4 spot. We shall see. But for now, let's go ahead and move on to our next division, please, Mr. Producer. Sounds like we have Ionia coming up next here, boys. So starting off with myself once again here, I do have the Monkeys Reformed in first place, as do we all, does I assume anyone who has been watching this season of BOL so far. But I do have the Conduit Gremlins up there in second. It looks like you are aligned with me on that front, Chris. I have the Feverish Monkeys in third. Optimal Esports, I still have in that 4th place spot despite their recent struggles. And then I do have Dorado down there in 5th, and the Whoopers and the Shadow Cows rounding us out for Ionia. Let's go in reverse order this time. I'm going to come over to you, Chris. Why do you think the Gremlins deserve to be up there in that 2nd place spot?
Well, after they manhandled us for 2 games, or 2 out of 3 games we played against them, I think looking back at it, everybody underrated them. I do think they're a really good team, and that top side is just a little disgusting. I think if they can keep their bot lane under wraps and they can keep it steady down there, I think the rest of the map can just carry. And I think that team is just a force to be reckoned with. I think it's definitely one of the top teams that also contend with Reformed, as they took a game off of them. So. Yeah. I think they're just really strong, and obviously going back to the beginning of the season, nobody thought so. So
absolutely, I
really
think the Gremlins have surprised a lot of people. Absolutely right. But let's move over to Cam now. If you could just run through your rankings for us, please.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we all have my team up at top for a good reason. I feel like we've been very strong, and then of course, our sister team I have second. I can't put any doubt on my org. But then, apart from that, we all kind of have the same or very similar teams after that. But yeah, I feel like the Little Monkeys strong this year, especially Performed. I feel like Paul is just too OP of a player. He's kind of like our player coach. He's like always helping us through our emotions, our feelings, helping us strive to become the best
Sounds like a
players we can be.
therapist. Jesus Christ.
And so I think Reformed are just too OP.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe that's the difference, CZI. If you had the therapist, maybe that's all you need to really get the edge on Tilt Esports. If things don't go your way tonight, then now where to possibly improve for future matches. Just need to get that support staff in order, and then you're going to be all good to go.
You're not wrong. Maybe a Swiss key.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and move over to your rankings now, CZI. If you could, if there's anything you'd like to highlight for us here.
Yeah, I saw that you put Altamore at 4th. I was like, honestly, like the troll of me wanted to put them as low as possible, so I was gonna put them below Shadow Cows, but I was like, nah, that's hella BM. They're not even there that bad. So I was like, yeah, they're obviously going through a lot right now, and it's like, I think they're the most disappointing team to split by far. Like, they had a lot going for them. Like, people were like, oh, these guys are going to run this division. They're going to take over everything. And then now they're just like, well, we got, I think, like 1 win or something. 1 or 2 wins. They need a lot more than that, bro. So we need to study how you go fumble this badly with that many stacked players in that team. It's maybe the biggest fumble of all time.
Yeah, Optimal Esports Enigma, everybody had them pretty much like at top 5 for the entire league at the start of the season power rankings. They are currently 3 and 6 in terms of game score here in the Ionia division, lagging behind a little bit there in 5th place at the moment. So definitely a lot of struggles there. Chris, I wanted to give you maybe the opportunity to chime in here a little bit about Optimal Esports specifically. You obviously mentioned a little bit earlier on, this was a team that you were on for the start of the split, but you are no longer on this team. Is that the case?
That is the case, yes.
Okay, so yeah, maybe just give us, your thoughts on what was going wrong and what you are up to now.
Well, it's all in, I think, no flame or anything. Too many big egos on the team. I guess you could include myself as well as one of those. Fuck you. Anyways, I don't know. I think, realistically speaking, we weren't stylistically good together. It didn't really make sense with what I was wanting to do and maybe what others were wanting to do on the team as well. And going into it, I was expecting more of like the role I like to play, which is a carry jungler, but obviously having to fall back on that is like kind of hinders my gameplay a little bit, which is fine. I'm fine with it. CCI always says I'm better the fucking engaged champs anyway, so I was like, okay, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. And then I don't know, games just started to slip away and more doubts started to creep in, and now they're making roster changes. And I'd love to see how that goes, considering you're not putting a jungle main in the jungle. So
yeah, that is a pretty wild move to try and make. Would you say, Chris, that the high expectations that everyone had for your team from the start of the season were actually turned out to be, was it one of those situations where that turned out to be like a hindrance, where you and the rest of the team kind of had those high expectations for yourselves and you kind of, were expecting too much, from either yourselves or one another just right out the gate there, and it kind of got in your own heads a little bit? Or do you feel like it was really more of a situation where, the expectations weren't so much causing that overconfidence, but it was really more of just, teammates not really being on the same page, having different visions for how to play out the game, this sort of thing?
I think, yeah, the second thing you just said, I completely agree. I think that just we took it game by game. We weren't like necessarily expecting to destroy people, but we weren't taking teams lightly as well. Right. So it's kind of like you have this weird conundrum where, yeah, we should be the best. We should be beating teams, but we just aren't. We aren't clicking. We aren't there. And I think that's when we started to realize this just isn't going to work.
Yeah, makes sense. I know we've been talking about Optimal Esports for a while already, but while we're on the subject, Chris, I was wondering if you would care to reflect a little bit on the week 3 match that you guys played. 'Cause that was one that we did have on the stream. That was your matchup against the Reformed Monkeys, who of course we also do have represented in the call here. So maybe if I could just get the perspective from both of you guys on what happened in that match. We'll start with you, Chris. You were, I believe, on your patented Heck Rim, one of your favorites in that game, number 2, and it was looking really good. You were very strong in that game. I believe that was the game as well where you had the Seraphine Sona bot lane to really like super buff up the Heck Rim and really try and get that carry jungle style going, but it kind of all fell apart around this like one team fight in the mid lane. So I was just wondering if you could reflect a little bit on that match and what you feel like went wrong there, and how that kind of contributed to where we find ourselves now.
Well, obviously everything fell apart at the second tier 2 and mid, where as a team collective we decided that it would be okay to fight there, but Seraphine ended up getting caught, and then just everything flushed down the drain. We weren't able to do anything. We were getting out macroed. Even in that game where we were so far ahead that winning team fights was easy for us, but the fact that we were getting out macroed and outpaced throughout the entire game just I don't know the right words for it. It's not really sad, but it's like we couldn't just get it together. And
Yeah.
obviously that led to where we are. Not one of the main reasons, but it definitely helped out the situation, or not helped out, but I can't think of words.
Contributed to the series
yeah.
of events that led to the team going for these crazy roster changes,
It,
etc.
it went from that, and then obviously we lost another series on top of that. So it just like compiled and became this big shit show that we couldn't pick up the pieces for.
Yeah. Makes
and
sense.
now they're looking to try and pick up the pieces of the puzzle that I don't think is fixable.
Well, all right then. Cam, I would like, if possible, if you could chime in here. You remember that match as well, I assume? What was your perspective like, thinking back on that matchup?
I mean, obviously, we could sit here and discuss gameplay for hours, but I do feel both games, I kind of took away just draft as a big factor of it. I remember the game 1 not feeling like the Ziggs Bard did much in a bot lane as you'd want a Ziggs Bard to ever do. It definitely struck me as a weird combination, and didn't, I feel, achieve much throughout the game. And then the game 2, they pulled the Seraphine Sona, which didn't really feel like it got to do what you'd want a Seraphine Sona to do. So it felt like a lot of non-traditional ADCs that didn't get to ever compete with what I guess a normal ADC could do.
Makes sense. So chalking a lot of that up to the draft. Cam, were you the one on the Nico in that game, or was that the mid laner?
No, I was Blitzcrank.
Or the Blitzcrank. Ah, that's right. Yeah, your Blitzcrank was also definitely a bit of a menace in that game, if I recall correctly.
I would also like to throw out that series we did not have our main ADC, so that also probably contributed to a loss.
An important detail. I had forgotten about that, so thank you for reminding us, Chris. But I think we have discussed that whole matchup quite enough. Let's go ahead and move on to our next division. If you could, Mr. Producer, we're going to be moving over to Noxus. Let's take a look at what I have here. I do have XG in first. No surprise there. Syndicate Crash Outs in second. I think those are the clear top 2 here in Noxus, and it looks like we are all aligned in that regard. I do have TFF Aftershock much higher ranked than the rest of you, though, which is something that'll be interesting for us to discuss. I do have Dynasty sitting in 4th place right now. I have both of the final boss teams outside of playoffs at the moment. And then, of course, the unfortunate Maelstrom Esports down there in last. CZI, let's come to you here. Just give a quick run through of your rankings, please, and your thoughts specifically on TFF Aftershock, one of the teams we're going to be watching later on tonight.
Oh man. Well, it's without a doubt, XG is like the best team in this division by far, and no one can even argue that claim anymore. The Syndicate team, they tried to be up there, but it didn't work out like that. I think the Dynasty team is actually fairly solid right now. I don't know if it's because this division's weak or they're decent. We won't know until playoffs, really. And then this final boss team, I get so confused with both of them. Is this the one with Chinese?
Rebirth is the one with the white underneath, and then Alpha is the one with like the yellow flag thing.
I think Rebirth's the one with Chinese Spy and a couple of the actual good
yes,
players.
You are correct. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that team is good. I believe in Spy. Spy's a really, really solid mid laner. And then honestly, all the reason I put TFF Aftershock this low is because we haven't seen what they look like with Rutledge mid. I know Rutledge mid is going to be a big improvement for what they had before. No flame to no name, but you know, Rutledge is one of the longest standing players for a reason. And it's not because he's ass, because he's not. So we'll see. I think they can make playoffs with this roster if they just like start spanking everybody. But it's like what, 2 weeks left? It's gonna be a bit rough.
Yeah, so 3 weeks, including this one. So they do still have a little bit of time. And the interesting thing about this division here in Noxus is the fact that 2nd place and 6th place in this division are separated by only 3 points right now. So it's incredibly close. Really, anybody except for Maelstrom could still easily get into those playoff spots. So
this division is cooked.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's very, very close. It's XG way out in front, Syndicate comfortably in 2nd, Maelstrom in last, and then everybody else, it's just like dead even.
Yeah, it's really all the final boss to just not fumble, and Dynasty Starweavers to not just randomly decide to start being buns. So we'll see what happens.
Indeed, we shall see. But let's move over to you, Cam. What do you think is going to happen? Give us the rundown.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched upon it there right at the end, but I feel like this is kind of the big group to watch out for like the middle of the packed shenanigans. Like nothing feels confirmed in the middle, whereas like you have, you know, Maelstrom, everyone has solidly at the bottom, and XG Syndicate, everyone has solidly 1st and 2nd. No one else can agree on like placement of the middle, and I feel that's for good reason. I mean, as you said, they're separated by only 3 points, but there's definitely going to be just very chaotic as they all, you know, kick and scream for potential playoff spots.
Yeah, very chaotic indeed. But last but not least, Chris, if you just want to give us your thoughts on this division, a quick run through of what you have ranked there.
The only reason I don't have Starweavers higher, like you guys do, is because they won last week against a team a TFF team with no Rutledge, which I think if they have Rutledge, they win, and Starweavers is probably further down. But to that aspect, I do think that both final boss teams can easily. I don't know if they've played already. I'm not sure.
They did play. The final boss team, Civil War, was back in week 2, and it was Rebirth who took the victory 2-1.
No, I mean Starweavers playing final boss. I don't know if they've played them.
Oh.
I actually kind of want to see now. I'm gonna look.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah,
I'm just looking to see if they've played final boss at all yet.
The Starweavers?
Yep, they beat
Starweavers played Rebirth.
Yeah, that was last week as Dynasty took a 2-1 over Rebirth.
I guess I might be a little wrong here, but I do think that I think if Starweavers could maybe pick up the pace a little bit, maybe they have a chance at 3rd place. But for now, I do have the 2 final boss teams up in 3rd and 4th for not really a good reason, but that entire division's a toss-up. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's fair, and I think that is where most people were expecting at the start of the season, those 2 final boss teams to rank, to kind of be like comfortably in the middle of the pack there, you know, in playoff spots. You know, me personally, I haven't really been impressed by them yet. That's why I have them down in 5 and 6 right now. But like we've discussed to death already, very, very close in the middle of that group, and really those 3rd and 4th place spots are anybody's for the taking. So we'll just have to see. Again, our matchup tonight is going to be Final Boss Rebirth versus TFF Aftershock on the stream. So it sounds like, you know, still a lot of questions surrounding TFF Aftershock and what they're going to be able to accomplish moving forward. And the Final Boss team still definitely need to impress us as well. Need to show us a little bit more. But we'll discuss that matchup a little bit more later. Let's move on to our last division for now, the Demacia division. If I'm not mistaken, it's going to be rounding things out. Well, I do have the Shattered Spire up there in first. The Spire Cats I do have right now in second. No Quarter Gaming. I am the highest No Quarter Gaming ranker up there in third. I have the AK Hearts in fourth after a pretty heartbreaking loss, pun intended, last week to the Shattered Spire. And then rounding things out, I do have the Kittens with Mittens up in fifth, Fools 5 in sixth, and Niner Esports. Just like all of you down there in last place. So let's come to you this time to start us off. Cam, if you could just run us through those rankings. Looks like you've got the AK Hearts all the way up in second place still, despite taking that loss last week. So just a run through of all your rankings and maybe some special focus there and why you have the Hearts still ranked so highly.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we can start with the Hearts. I feel I'm a firm believer in the fact that it's hard to judge a team with minimal games. So like, while they did obviously take the hit and they did fall down in a lot of people's eyes, I don't believe that to fully, judge them. I still have faith in them, even post that. But I mean, along with you guys, I have Niner Esports at the bottom. I know they are not highly viewed in their playoffs makingness anymore. Unfortunately for them. But then I have the Shattered Spire up at number 1. I think that they're the strongest team in this group, but we'll have to see how it continues to play out.
Well, we shall see. Shattered Spire had another pretty good week last week, but CZI, you actually have them ranked second below the Spire Cats. You are the only one to put the Spire Cats above the Shattered Spire. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Look, man, you call me what you want, Shattered Spire doubter, Shattered Spire hater, whatever. I believe that regular season is regular season, but I believe in like the outlook of the Spire Cats. I just feel like they played each other already and they lost, but that team looks good. And realistically, I agree with what Cam said. Like during regular season, and it's hard to really gauge a team's strength off of these these series sometimes. And I feel like they played each other pretty early too. So I feel like next time they play each other, it might turn out different. I don't know. I just find it hard to really put my faith in the Shattered Spire, knowing their track record. Like they went to Eternal, and they just flamed out. And after I saw that, I was like, I'm not betting on the Shattered Spire ever again.
Interesting. Yeah, that matchup between the Shattered Spire and the Spire Cats was all the way back in week number 1. Yeah. That is when the Shattered Spire picked up the 2-0 victory over the Spire Cats. Ever since then, the Spire Cats have picked up 3 2-0s in a row. They are on a 6-game win streak coming into their matchup tonight. Spire Cats, they actually do have a bye. Their bye is this week. The Shattered Spire, on the other hand, is going to be playing against Niner Esports. So should still be able to hold on to that first place spot for the Shattered Spire for another week, but definitely that is something to continue to keep track of. Between those two Spire teams does feel like a pretty tight race for first here in Demacia. But Chris, if you could go ahead and give us a quick rundown of your power rankings here for Demacia, then we'll go ahead and get into match predictions.
Well, it's crazy that CZI says something about playoffs because these are regular season power rankings. So
True.
You're stupid. Anyways,
thank you.
I do think so. I think the matchup between Fools 5 and Quarter Gaming is tonight, right? I believe so.
Sorry, Fools 5 versus who?
No Quarter Gaming.
Yes, that is right. That is the match that's being played tonight.
So I do think that Fools 5 does beat No Quarter Gaming and can maybe elevate themselves in their group, which is why I have them fourth. Two Shattered Spire teams, obviously, they deserve first and second place respectively. You could probably intertwine them, see who has first, who has second. Maybe if you revisit that matchup now, Spire Cats wins. Who knows, right? And then obviously Niner Esports, and then the other team I do not recognize that I forgot the logo of. I'm sorry.
The Kittens with Mittens.
Kittens with Mittens, right? The AI logo. My fault.
You got the new logo there. But yeah,
Um,
totally fair. Oh, did you have anything
yeah.
else you wanted to?
No, that's okay.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, let's just go ahead and move straight into those predictions now for tonight's matchup. So what are we starting with production? Going back to Mattia here. Wonderful, wonderful. So the Kittens with Mittens. That was a great transition that we just did there. Totally intentional, guys. I'm just really good at this. But yeah, I am the only Kittens with Mittens predictor amongst the group here. So after watching the match last week, that was AK Hearts versus the Shattered Spire, I was a little bit disheartened. Again, pun intended, by the side of AK Hearts, where it felt like they should have had, honestly, the 2-0 last week, but then there was sort of this tragic team fight towards the end of game 2, and it felt like, to me, it felt like it kind of broke them a little bit, where they weren't really able to get anything to happen in game 3, and it was just very, very sad. So that's kind of the main reason why I'm going with the Mitten Kitten prediction for this week, but certainly it is a possibility that the Hearts could bounce back, and maybe, CZI, if you could talk to us a little bit about why you think that might be the case.
AK Hearts, man, they're a good team. I remember them. I think it was last split BOL where they had their jungler playing mid lane, and this team is just sleeper. And this season they're doing really well. I don't let that last week's loss, like, you can't look at it as like a bad thing. It's a good thing, you know. I mean, it's not a good thing, obviously, but it's like, yo, they'll be all right. Let's not hit the emergency button already. They'll be good.
All right. Sounds good. So some reassurance there from CZI. So I'm sure AK Hearts fans out there are feeling much better now. But Cam, let's go ahead and move over to you. So our next matchup to discuss here is No Quarter Gaming versus Fools 5. You are a Fools 5 predictor, and I think this was just coming up a moment ago. I think Chris was discussing for us a little bit, or was that you, Cam? Somebody was talking about how Fools 5 is still in a decent spot. But yeah, Cam, just go ahead and give us your thoughts.
So I mean, yeah, ultimately I had to pick a team here, but no matter who wins, I think it's going to game 3. I ended up like going a little bit to Fools 5, but I don't have major stake in either team. I think it's going to be a banger game 3, chaotic game, and I think really either team has it.
Okay. Really quickly, back over to CZI for your No Quarter Gaming vote. What are you thinking there?
They show no quarter, and Fools 5. Everyone but Solomation is terrible.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad we came back to you for that really insightful analysis, CZI. Absolutely amazing stuff. But Chris, back over to you now. If you could give us the rundown on Shattered Spire, who are going up against Niner Esports tonight. Should be a pretty straightforward one.
I don't think there's any discussion needed. They're just gonna beat the hell out of them.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think Niner Esports has even a life in this game. There's nothing they'll be able to do to win.
Yeah,
prove me wrong though. I would love to be proven wrong.
Absolutely. I would be an incredible story if Niner Esports could surprise us tonight. But I think we're all in agreement here about what we should expect from that matchup. So let's go ahead and move on to our next division. Should have Noxus coming up next here. And let's see. Our first matchup in Noxus this week is going to be Syndicate Crashouts going up against Final Boss Alpha. So this is the Final Boss team that did lose out in the Civil War. And Final Boss Alpha, I believe, also coming off a loss last week. Yeah, they were playing against XG last week. So that was a pretty tough match for Alpha, and looking like another one here against Syndicate. Chris, we'll give you this another one-sided one here if you want to discuss it all.
We're talking about the Syndicate matchup, yeah?
Yep. Yes, sir.
I don't think there's just no question. I don't think it's close. I think that Zooey and Jake will take over this game. We'll show them all. I just think that matchup's a wash. There's no need to discuss it.
Okay, great. Well, let's not discuss it any further then. Moving on to our next matchup, we do have TFF Aftershock is going to be playing against Final Boss Rebirth this week. That is going to be, of course, as previously mentioned, our streamed matchup. So let's hear from both Cam and CZI here about let's hear from everybody, honestly, about their predictions for this matchup. But Cam, we'll go to you first. You're a Final Boss Rebirth predictor. Final Boss Rebirth, they did lose out last week. That was a 1-2 loss over to Dynasty. But they are looking to bounce back here against a TFF team that on paper, they should be favored against. So, Cam, give us the reasoning for your final boss prediction here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've talked about TFF and we've talked about how you have them higher than how we view them, but ultimately, I mean, I think that Rebirth, even with their loss last week, I mean, I still think that they've shown to be strong in a lot of the areas they need to be, and I think that they can really pull something out.
Okay, well, CZI, let's hear from you now about the TFF Aftershock prediction. So, as Cam just mentioned, I had Aftershock ranked pretty highly in my own power rankings, all the way back from week 1. I felt like they sort of had that scrappiness to be able to compete with some of the stronger teams here in the Emerald League, but just give us your perspective on why you think they might have the advantage in this matchup in particular.
I think the roster changes they did were like really good. I feel like Rutledge back in the mid lane is a big turning point for me, at least. Because him top lane's like, okay, him mid lane's very good. And then the top lane they have now, Walk Warlock, he's solid enough to get them to where they need to go. Like, so in theory, they should be able to stand toe-to-toe Rebirth on paper. Because I believe in the bot lane, believe in the mid lane, and top jungle should be okay.
All right, excellent. Chris, I would love to hear your perspective on this matchup as well, as it is our streamed matchup of the night tonight. And we just gave you a couple of one-sided ones in a row, so maybe you have a little bit more analysis on this matchup.
Rutledge moved back to mid, correct?
That's right. That's what we're hearing. Yeah.
I do think that moving Rutledge back to mid and putting Warlock top makes it a better roster iteration, but I don't think it's enough to be final boss. I also do not believe in Walk Warlock at all, as some of the previous splits I've seen. So I'm a little biased there. I would love to be proven wrong. So prove me wrong.
Wow. Interesting.
Make me a believer. Make me a believer.
I actually did not realize up until this point, it actually is Walk Warlock coming in for TFF in the top lane. That is really, really cool. As somebody else that I saw last season in the Plat League. But we're running out of time here, guys. We can just skip this next matchup. I think it's XG versus Maelstrom. I don't think anybody really has anything to say there. That wouldn't be disrespectful to Maelstrom. So let's just move on to our next division. And we're going to have to go through this pretty quickly, guys. So rapid fire on this one. Conduit Gremlins versus Dorado Gaming Epsilon. CZI.
Gremlins clears. Dorado sucks.
Great. Thank you very much. Cam, Monkeys Reformed versus the Shadow Cows.
I mean, Little Monkeys is just the GOAT. They're going to win both series because we're just the better org.
Yeah, fair enough. Spoken like a true literal monkey. And that makes sense to me. Chris, Omega Whooper versus the Feverish Monkeys.
I do feel bad. I love Whooper, but I think that Fever wins 2-0, even without Turks top lane.
Yeah. Whooper, great logo, great team name. We love them. They're super cool. But yeah, going to be a tough matchup tonight against the Feverish Monkeys. Next division, please, production. All right, I am a little bit delusional here, going for the Clown Gaming prediction over Mint Gaming. I'm fully aware of that, but Mint have been struggling a little bit recently. I believe they have taken a couple of losses in a row. But Chris, if you could just tell us why that doesn't matter, and Mint are actually going to be winning this one.
It doesn't matter because Clown Gaming stinks, and they will just drop the series 0-2.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We do have... Hang on a second. We got an Elysium on Ice member in the call with us. That's you, CZI. So let's hear from Cam about this matchup. He is the Tilt Esports predictor alongside the rest of us.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think all three of these games are going to game 3. I'm not too sold on either team either way. So, I mean, I don't have too big of stake in Tilt Esports to, like, destroy ELY or anything. I think they're pretty evenly matched.
Okay, so expecting a close matchup there, but still predicting Tilt Esports to win out as the defending champs. I want to get your perspective as well on this one, CZI. How do you think you and the rest of the squad are going to be able to take down Tilt?
I think we match up really well. Dilly's the GOAT. Caleb's the GOAT. Naysayer. We have K-Peps now. We just upgraded everywhere. And as long as we don't troll and we play our game, it should be easy peasy. KTL's not playing, so we got it.
CCO's
okay. So
chill, bro. He writes
there
our
you
content.
Go. You heard it here. You heard it here, guys, on that prediction. So our last matchup here in Freljord is going to be TTM versus Hydropump Zebra. That's another huge on paper should be a huge advantage for TTM in that match. We talked about that one a little bit earlier as well. So if anybody had any urgent thoughts on this matchup, you can probably just skip it. If not,
hey man, Hydro Pump got a chance.
they got a chance. They got a chance. They picked up that one win over Clown Gaming. Who's to say that they can't get another?
Like I said earlier, I have not paid attention. Go whoever wins. Don't care. Have fun.
Hey man, GG.
Love that. Absolutely. Good luck. Have fun out there, everybody. We do really want to very quickly give all of you guys a chance to do some shout outs. So CZI, your shout outs, please. Any words you have for the stream?
Shout out to Elysium for picking me up when I was homeless. I'm this way every split damn near. So GG, thank you very much. We're gonna win it all.
Amazing. Yeah. Good luck in your match tonight against the defending champs. Cam, your shout outs, please.
Shout outs to just the entire organization of Little Monkeys. You guys are the goats.
Yeah. Well, they're monkeys, but we get the idea. Thank you, Cam. Chris, your shout outs, please.
Shout out Pac Paul for picking me up in my time of need. I'll give you a kiss.
Wonderful. Very, very wholesome. Thank you guys very much for coming on for this week of Auto Talk. Appreciate you all taking the time. Good luck in your matches tonight, especially you, Chris, going up against that dreaded bye week. That is going to be a tough one. So, thank you guys very
huge
very
bye
much.
week for them to figure out a new jungler. Thumbs up.
GG.
Oh, right. Yes, right. Of course. Anyways, yes, thank you guys. We're going to go to a short break. When we come back, TFF Aftershock versus Final Boss Rebirth. Welcome back, everyone, to Blue Otter Emerald Week 5. It is now time for tonight's best of 3. We will be taking another look at the Noxus division. It's return to the spotlight for TFF Aftershock. A little bit of a different look, though. They will be facing off against final boss Rebirth. Currently in third, FBR are coming off a tough loss last week against the Dynasty Starweavers. TFF, on the other hand, were able to pick up a much-needed win, their first match win of the season over the hapless Maelstrom Esports. Bringing you the call tonight, my name is Crewman44, and I am joined this week by the tantalizing Mr. Turk to bring you all of the action. Turk, how you doing?
Good, man. Good. Great intro. Tantalizing, eh?
Always.
I love that. Hey, it's great to be here, man. I appreciate it. I got the call up here to the big leagues, so I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I really can't wait for this at the end of the day and being able to get back into the casting things what I wanted. So here we are, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. 100% crewman.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to be on the desk with you in the past, so I'm glad we have the opportunity to be reunited once again. But Turk, you are, of course, a little bit of a newcomer here to the Blue Otter League specifically. So for the time being, I just would like to pick your brain a little bit on patch number 1419 here. You know, we've been sitting on this patch for about a week now. It was a bit of a doozy, you know, lots of changes here in 1419. What are kind of the big standouts on this patch for you after, you know, playing on it for about a week here?
Well, there's a few things. First and foremost, I think this fits into both the top laners for these teams that I've done the scouting with so far. It seems like tanks are back. With all the items being nerfed, just in general, it seems like scaling is going to be there when it comes to just natural health growth and everything else that's in between, armor resistance, MR, everything else like that. So I think tanks are going to be back, but with that comes some other tank busters. Something like Alawi comes to mind. I know both of these top laners, if I'm not mistaken, play that. So Alawi will keep an eye out to see if that sticks around. Something like Gwen, Camille also come to mind. So that's kind of what I've noticed on the top side so far. But again, it's still pretty early on to be able to tell. I know when you kind of move down to the jungle role, you can expect a lot of the same thing. It's like Sejuani, Maokai. You're seeing like Skarner a bit more. Even like something like a Wukong I've started noticing has been coming up a lot more because Wukong has that time to be able to scale and get a little bit ahead as things progress. And then mid lane to me seems a lot like control mages. So like Syndra, Asol, Orianna really come to mind. ADCs, that's kind of the one I'm still working out. Seems like Jhin and Ashe seem to be quite strong in the support meta. I think the only real change that you might see with that, as far as I can tell so far, would be like a Lulu. Because it seems like hyper carries could actually be decently strong even after all of the item nerfs that came through. Of course, if you're an AD carry, you're going to scale with items. While if you're a control mage, the items are great, but you're also going to scale with levels. So I think that's why the control mages are coming back into the play. And ADCs, it's a little tougher to say. But
yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense, Turk. You know, I love that you mentioned the Syndra. That pick in particular, I've been seeing pop up on the B1 quite a lot since this patch dropped. And I've even seen it once or twice in the AP carry position down there towards the bottom side. So, you know, that obviously a little bit more unusual. But the Syndra does feel like a really, really powerful pick in the meta right now. As we are getting into our champion select phase, Turk, for game number 1 here. As you can see, folks, final boss Rebirth on the blue side, TFF on the red side to start this one off. The Viego and the Volibear going to get banned away right off the get-go here. Those are a couple of champions that TFF were able to use to great success in their 2-0 that I mentioned last week. On their side, they're going to ban away the Udyr and the Kaisa for now on those first 2 slots.
yeah, that's it right there. That Volibear, of course, that's going to be a flex ban. So that one makes sense to me. If you can basically hit 2 birds with 1 stone, why not do that? The Ziggs also makes a lot of sense. In the first pick, Seraphine was something I was wondering about. I know that Kior likes to play a lot more of like the mage style. And when it comes to like if you're first picking any sort of champion that you have a lot of flexibility with in your draft, usually if you're going to be picking any sort of mage-esque style champion, it's either A, going to be the Syndra because you can flex that, although she does have some seriously hard counters, or it's going to be the Seraphine. And that's what we see.
Yeah, indeed. Seraphine very highly prioritized here, and Aftershock taking their time for the response here. There is the Syndra, that other really powerful pick that we've been calling out. And now I wonder if this is going to be a jungle lock-in here. Is that's, you know, another great strength of the Syndra, right? Is the fact that she can both set up and follow up on early ganks so nicely with the huge range that she has on Scatter the Weak. So that's kind of what I would like to see is maybe a prio pick here for Cocoa Puffs, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Early on in this stage, whenever I'm drafting for my team or if I'm coaching a team, it's usually going to be the jungle pick, and we are going to see that right here. I mean, the option for the Silas is kind of sort of there, but the Syndra does pretty well into that, so I think the Amumu is a relatively safe pick. How you want to adapt to that is completely up to you, but the R1, R2 coming in from TFF looks quite strong at this point right now. It really does come down to what blue side does want to do here. Because if you pick that Seraphine, of course, you're going to have quite a bit of AP already. So do you want to send that Seraphine to the mid lane? Do you want to swap it to bot? What do you want to do with that? And if you do take it to bot, then of course, are you going to draft an AP mid as a result, which means quite a bit of AP. So looks like we're going to see the B2 and the B3 come out. The Maokai, just a really strong frontliner, easy engage, and Rel, no different.
Yeah, so a bunch of setup coming through here. Like you say, Turk, on the 2-3 for FBR. You know, interesting thing about this final boss roster is, you know, this is true for many teams, you know, in the division, even in the entire league here in Emerald. But this final boss Rebirth roster they have a very strong preference, it seems, for drafting towards team fight and kind of scaling a little bit later on into the game before really trying to put the screws into their opponents. So that seems like the avenue once again here, just drafting all of this sort of utility, all of this big team fight CC power so far is going to be the avenue for Rebirth. But TFF Aftershock have some pretty interesting tools to work with here. They're going for the Vel'Koz on the R3.
There is an unbelievable amount of AP right here. I wouldn't be surprised to actually see something like a Mundo coming in here sometime soon. Mundo tends to do really well into AP comps in general. And looking at this already, like the first 3 picks that you see on red side from TFF immediately scream to me Mundo. So of course they do have the R4. They do have the option to take that if that's something that they want, or of course they can't just ban that if that's something that they don't prioritize. But it looks like they did a bit of their homework here, because if I had to guess, that Vel'Koz is probably going to be the one who's going bot lane to deal with that Seraphine.
Yeah, it's certainly a strong possibility. You know, it could also still be, you know, flex to the mid lane if we do want to see like some Syndra APC shenanigans. You know, that could potentially come through. And I'm sure that TFF Aftershock, they are going to save the R5 pick for their top laner here for Wok Warlock, who is something else that we did need to mention here. TFF Aftershock have gone for some roster adjustments heading into this match in week number 5. They've moved Rutledge, the former top laner, down into the mid lane, and they've brought in Wok Warlock, who is a top 4 finisher last season in the Platinum division. He has now been promoted up to Emerald here, playing in the big leagues now on TFF Aftershock right at the turn of the tides when they really need to pick up another win to try and save the season here. They've brought in Warlock, and they are giving him the R5 pick here on red side as well. So very excited to see what he is going to be bringing out for us. We do have the Braum there on the R4, so that is going to most likely... Oh, man. Where do you think... What's your prediction right now in terms of the Syndra and the Vel'Koz and where they might be headed, Turk?
I wouldn't be surprised still if that Vel'Koz does head towards bot. That's still my guess at the end of the day. The one kind of sort of question that I do have right now is besides the Amumu itself, I don't think there's a lot of engage coming in from the side of TFF, so I'm a little hesitant, I'm a little worried. They were hovering the Alistar before, and I think the Alistar might have been the better pick here. It's a little tough to say, and we'll see how they round this out, but Braum, of course, in isolation in that 2v2 is going to do quite well into both the Seraphine and the Rel. The question is, how well does it translate into your team and in the team comp that you're drafting here?
We do have Set and Jin, the final lock-ins for Final Boss Rebirth on the blue side, and now Wok Warlock's counter pick looks like it is going to be the Alawi here into Seaboyer's Set. There's the lock-in. So what do we think about that R5, Mr. Turk?
The R5, the Alawi, to me, I mean, that once again seems like an isolation matchup. Like, if you're able to really get ahead of that Alawi, you can really like start to punish and split push. So the question then becomes for TFF, how strong is your 4v4? And in this instance, when I'm looking at it, they really do have that one go button, and they're very, very AP heavy. So the team comp that they've drafted, while there are some opportunities to be able to find some good fights there, they have to be really careful because, very simply put, like a Merc Treads can do a lot of damage into those members. So that's something that I'm a little bit hesitant about. The Alawi itself, to me, again, as I mentioned before, is purely for split push. If you do start grouping up in the Alawi, then there might be a couple windows where you can find some good team fights, but really you want to apply as much side lane pressure as you possibly can. And something that we didn't really get a chance to talk too much about their crewman beforehand was, of course, that Seraphine pick. I think you and I both kind of assumed that'd be going in the bot lane. Obviously, with that Jhin lock-in this phase 2, that B5 pick, it's very evident that that Seraphine is in fact going mid. So that has been a flex. We'll have to see how well they're able to adapt to that. But from what I'm looking at right now, I really like Final Boss Rebirth's team comp. I think it's pretty well rounded. They don't have a ton of AP damage, but I think that they have enough to be able to do what they need to do. Question is, how well can they execute themselves?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think you're absolutely right about the assessment of TFF Aftershock's draft, and them being a little bit lacking in the physical damage. Allowing really wanting to play more towards those side lanes is some cause for concern, I think, for this red side draft. For the side of Final Boss Rebirth, I believe that Seraphine did see some changes a few patches ago where they were trying to shift her into more of a mid lane role, if I recall correctly. So there were some adjustments there in terms of, allowing her to scale a little bit more from experience and sort of having more value just as a solo laner. So I am interested to see how that pick does go for Chinese Spy. Overall, though, for Final Boss Rebirth, Turk, I personally am a little bit concerned that they might be lacking a little bit of damage just in general, particularly if the set has a little bit of a rough time up there in that 1v1 against the Alawi. I'm a little bit worried that they have all of this set up, all of this way to lock people down, and they just might not quite have enough in the tank to actually finish them off.
Oh, that right there will be the main question, right? Are you able to get through the front line? And realistically, you're going to be looking at that 4v4. So can you get through that Amumu? Can you get through that Braum? And if you can, then can you get any other members to follow up with as well? So yeah, I think that's a great thing to bring up. The one thing I do want to point out there, and of course you can go back and forth with these team comps, and you can all do all these hypotheticals. At the end of the day, we'll just have to see what really happens. But the one thing I will say for sure from Final Boss Rebirth, there's no question that they have engage. At the end of the day, if they want to pull trigger, they can do it. It's just whether or not they're actually able to read and call out that Braum shield, because that can do a lot of damage to their team comp as is. So both teams look a-okay with their drafts. I personally myself, I would have to favor Final Boss Rebirth when it comes down to just the execution of it, the ease, being able to actually pull trigger. Your damage, while it's not a ton, is more divided. It's more spread amongst the rest of your team. So you have that AD source, you have that AP source too coming in. So can you make something happen with that? That's a question. And while you look at TFF Aftershock, you kind of look, and generally speaking, you see nothing but AP. So
yeah.
Are you able to itemize properly, which shouldn't be that difficult? Merc Treads goes really well as it stands right now, even looking into their team comp. So I think Merc should be coming out across the board. Even though they did quote unquote get nerfed, I think the cost went up by another 100 gold. To me, this seems like a no-brainer for a purchase.
Yeah, obviously. I think Merc Treads across the board would make a lot of sense here. Honestly, for all 10 champions in the game, you could make a very strong case for Mercury Treads.
Nerf them again.
Yeah. It's, we'll see. Hopefully Riot's not watching this stream. If they are, that next round of Mercury Treads nerfs is probably on the horizon. But overall, I think both drafts have some pretty clear strengths and weaknesses. We are seeing here in the client draft, the Vel'Koz has been locked in right now in the mid lane position, Turk. So does this change anything for you significantly? What do you think about that matchup between the Vel'Koz and the Seraphine? And then, thoughts on the Syndra in the bot lane as well?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that the Vel'Koz should actually have priority in that lane. So if that's the case, you might be able to get a couple roams in with your Amumu while you're waiting for that next wave to crash. You have about 25 to 30 seconds before that happens. So are you able to kind of sync up with your jungler, look to play for any sort of like Scuttle Crabs, maybe a bit of an invade playing off Raptors or anything like that? So the priority, if I'm not mistaken, should go to the Vel'Koz. So that's the first thought that comes to mind. After that, I really don't quite know what else to expect here. The drafts to me look really interesting. I do like the Jhin coming out. I talked a little bit earlier about what I thought the Jhin would be when it comes to this meta, and I still think he's probably, if not the best AD right now, he's a close second to probably something like Ashe. It seems like more supportive, style ADs are doing better in this meta, so it's a little bit harder to read. But when it comes down to it, I think the priority should go in the favor of the Vel'Koz when it comes to that 1v1 in that mid lane. Have to see how that plays out. Are they able to sync up, group up together, actually start playing for neutrals, look to do any sort of evades, especially when they do have that 6, like that Amumu, when that champion does actually start to come online, becomes quite scary, but equally so if you look on the opposite side, the level 6 coming in from Final Boss Rebirth also looks quite scary. So you have the Seraphine R, you have the Maokai R, the Rel R, the Jin R for the follow-up too. So I think early on, I wouldn't be surprised if this game is a little bit stagnant. I think once that level 6 does happen, right around that 7 to 8 minute mark in the game is when you should start to see something really happen. So in between then and there, are any teams bleeding, or any solo laners getting denied too much XP, too much gold, or plates going down? So really what ends up happening in that instance, I don't quite know, but I'm looking forward to it, man.
Absolutely, I am as well. You know, we'll have to see if this revitalized top side for TFF Aftershock are going to be able to find an early advantage and sort of take control of the game early. You know, they've got the Syndra power pick down there in the bot lane as well. Over here on the other side, though, Final Boss Rebirth, the stronger team on paper, higher up at the moment in the standings. They've been playing for team fights all season. Let's see if they can get it to the mid game and make those team fights work in their favor one more time here. We're going to go to a short break, guys. When we come back, game number 1. All right, everybody, welcome on to Summoner's Rift for our first game of the night. One more time, guys, a reminder, final boss Rebirth on the blue side, TFF Aftershock on the red to start us off for tonight's best of 3. Anything you would like to draw our attention to right at the outset of this one, Turk?
I think we're going to want to pay real close attention to this bot lane. I think whether or not the Syndra and the Braum are able to get this priority, I think it's going to be pretty crucial whether or not they're actually going to be able to match this Jhin and this Rel. Naturally, Jhin does have a lot of priority. We're seeing a bit of damage coming through here so far. It looks like there's just trying to get a ward on that Raptors. Obviously, knowing where a movement starts early on is pretty nice. You know where he's going to be come that 4-minute mark when his camps do respawn as well. So, looks like Big Rev is going to get punished for that. Actually pops his pot too early on, so...
Not enough time to go back to base.
That's right. That's right. The Maokai level 1 actually does do the Raptors quite well, so the opportunity for an invade to take those away is there, but in this instance, it was snuffed out. They did a great job.
Yeah, we do see actually for TFF Aftershock as well, they were able to get a ward of their own onto those blue side Raptors. So they are going to spot out Big Rev as he does go for his own Raptor camp take at the level 1 mark. It's going to be matched by Cocoa Puffs on the reverse side there. Amumu also clearing out the Raptors to start things off. So we'll have to see where the junglers decide to go from here. What are your expectations in terms of pathing?
Cocoa Puff should be doing a full clear on this Amumu. He's going to be spotted out on this red. So, yeah, both teams are aware of where these junglers are starting. Doing this Krugs to me 100% says he's just going to clear this, head to his red, straight down bot side. While Maokai, he has a bit of flexibility in what he does, but realistically, he should probably just be going for that full clear as well right now. If there's any sort of engage opportunity, if a lot of HP is being traded bot side, then he could take a peek there, like what we're seeing top side. But don't be surprised if he starts switching his attention towards that top lane.
Yeah, the newcomer, of course, as previously mentioned, Walk Warlock, debuting on the roster this week. Gonna get to level 2 first here over Seaboyer's set. Haymaker, though, does get a good amount of damage back. Both top laners suffering up there. Strong,
yeah, they are.
Heavy trading.
That's right. And Maokai is actually looping around. The opportunity
you
is
flash
there.
coming out from the Splinker down here in the bottom lane. Chunk's almost going to Bramble Smash away from his teammate. The Braum will get taken down for first blood as the 4th shot comes through from Patronus. It's going to be FBR on the board for first blood.
And the consistency of that engage is just there. If that Rel Q flash lands, you can almost guarantee that the Maokai root's going to come through, and you burn both flashes for first blood. No question about that. That's worth it. And this was going to be my question right here. What does Cocoa Puffs decide to do? Because if you do this 3 camp, of course, you start bot side. They knew that you were there. That leaves your top side wide open. So as it stands right now, you do not have top prio when it comes to Final Boss Rebirth. You need to respect Walk Warlock right now on the Salawi. So this Amumu does have a bit of agency. It's just whether or not he gets caught out by Big Rev in his jungle here.
Yeah, that's another change that we had on 1419, of course. The fact that there are the automatic pings that come out. When you are caught invading the enemy jungle, it does automatically alert all of those enemy teammates that they have the opportunity to collapse on you and look for the punish. So Cocoa Puff's going to have to be even more careful there than he would have had to have been on 1418. But it looks like the Amumu was successful in his endeavor to steal away the blue buff.
That's right. And this top lane is so volatile now, especially with this wave pushing out. You see Cocoa Puffs, he is spotted, of course. He was spotted earlier on, but this is a good match here by Big Rev. He still does have his Gromp to be able to clear as well, so stopping the back right here is quite nice. At the end of the day, the Amumu does steal your blue buff, but he's really only 1 camp ahead. He hasn't had a chance to farm his bot side quadrant yet either, so you can really see the priority being set on this top side wave. This has to crash, and Big Rev has done a really good job at reading this play here, and now he's free. Now that his top lane, the volatility is nullified for the time being. He can head on over, take his Gromp, probably get his reset in, while Cocoa Puffs can look to do the same here very soon as well.
Yeah. Just 500 gold lead for FBR so far in this one, but things seem to be going according to plan for them thus far into this first game.
It sure does seem like that right now. The mid priority is starting to get established too, while the HP advantage is in the favor of the Seraphine. Obviously the mana is not, so you can see Rutledge just constantly once again able to push this in. A ward right there is a-okay. A ward on Raptors is arguably a bit better right there, but as long as you spot this jungler, you should know where the Maokai is going to be at this point in time, though, knowing that it did start bot side right around that 4-minute 20-second timer is when he should be back down there. So in this instance right now, if you're bot for the side of TFF Aftershock, you just want to respect. If this wave comes back into you, that is probably the best state that you could hope for right now.
That does seem to be what's happening here, as Fox Patronus is going to get the push out here on the wave. That's going to be moving towards Kaora and Chong on the Syndra Braum. One other thing to mention here is we were actually informed by production during the draft that Vel'Koz is an old comfort pick for Rutledge. You know, Rutledge didn't have the opportunity to bust out the Void Squid in the top lane, which is, of course, where he was playing up to now this season for the squad. But now at the first opportunity, after moving back to mid, is going to go for it. A Splinker is going to go for a little bit of a crash down here towards the bot side, but nothing will come of it.
No, nothing yet. The Scuttle Crab was in contention at that point right now, but of course with that wave not being crashed yet, both junglers showing bot side, the priority even still is going to be going in the favor of Cocoa Puffs. It just looks like Final Boss Rebirth just don't want to contest that right now, and that'll be his second crab now. So at this point, Cocoa Puff's looking quite good, actually.
Moving in here on the Amumu. It's going to look for the bandage toss here in a moment. Nice sidestep for the Splinker, but still going to get tagged by the concussive blows. Does find 2 with the stun. Rel trying to sidestep as much as possible. Doesn't want to give over the kill to the Syndra. And actually, they waited too long to get it, and Cocoa Puffs is going to be able to secure that kill underneath the turret, but has to burn the flash to get out from underneath the turret. And that is going to be TFF Aftershock tying us up at 1-1, but could have been a bit cleaner.
Could have been a bit cleaner, could have been executed that much sooner as well, but that's right. At the end of the day, you're trying to give that kill to that Cinder so you can get that snowball going that much more. On the opposite side of the map, though, the cross map coming in once again. Big Rev doing a great job just recognizing this. This is a free set of grubs for yourself. Net this up. This is the first neutral of the game, and also, of course, the series. So with that coming through, you can really start to see the split push, probably from the set mostly coming through at this point right now. Extra damage onto those turret plates will be nice, but nothing else really done too much. Both teams just kind of trading blow for blow. Goal quite even, and Big Rev is behind.
Yeah, here comes the Maokai. Gonna get that Bramble Smash back as Rutledge is in trouble. Already used his Zone Flash as well as the Lifeform Disintegration Ray is gonna get some good damage there out onto Chinese Spy, down to about 100 on the Seraphine. The top laner is actually duking it out up there at the moment as well. Warlock has just gone for the Leap of Faith, and Seaboy in response is just gonna back away.
Yeah, that sequence was quite spicy at the end of the day. It's really just 2 sums burned, both of them being from the mid laners, and at this point right now, it doesn't look like you're able to contest if you're the side of Final Boss Rebirth. This is a great call here. So both neutrals just being traded in cross maps. Void Grubs, of course, going to Final Boss, while TFF Aftershock is going to be able to net this dragon. And in my opinion, I would much rather be stacking dragons. Dragons are just better in general for team fight comps. So if you're able to group up, force fights, you can pull trigger, and you'll have that much more advantage with the raw stats that you gain from those dragons. So this is excellent, good trade of neutrals here coming in from TFF.
Yeah, Turk, I quite agree. I am a dragon guy myself as well. I tend to find that they just have a little bit more consistent value as the game progresses. You know, grubs, of course, are nice as well, but you really need, you know, at least one champion who's really strong in the side lane to get good use, you know, good value out of those grubs. And, you know, Seaboyer's set could potentially be that, but you discussed this for us in the draft already as well. You know, that matchup into the Alawi is a really difficult one for Set, and feels like he's probably not going to get many opportunities to be auto-attacking turrets in the side lane.
That's it. If you're playing strong side top with a split push or something like a Fiora comes to mind, then stacking Void Grubs is 110% worth it. There's no question about it, because you have that split push threat come later stages of the game. Fiora, generally speaking, outscales most top laners too, if not all of them. So yeah, the Void Grubs, while it's a nice neutral, you get it on the cross map after your bot lane does die. It's still something there, but of course the dragon is going to be the higher value in this game for sure.
Absolutely right. These teams have been pretty measured so far in their approach to this game number 1. You know, it's interesting because I don't know if I mentioned this to you already, Turk, or not, but we did see TFF Aftershock actually on the stream all the way back in week number 1. They were playing against one of the stronger teams here in the group, and probably my favorite thing about TFFF, yeah, that was an extra F. But my favorite thing about this team, oh, hang on, Leap of Faith in the top side. Warlock looking for the solo kill. Seaboyer flashes away, will be able to stay alive. Very close call there towards the top side. But I really liked their scrappiness for TFFF. How aggressive they were in the fights. A Seaboyer moving forward once again here. Does find the facebreaker onto Walk Warlock. Flash to get to the other side of the Haymaker. And Walk Warlock will find the solo kill. Cocoa Puffs is going to give it to him. Love to see that. Walk Warlock picks it up in the 1v1, and Aftershock are in the lead 2-1 on the board.
And the only question there is whether or not you dodge that Haymaker. And if you have that flash up, it makes it just that much easier. In that instance, he does. He pulls through and comes up clutch, and that's huge right there. That first kill can easily snowball the rest of this matchup. Like we spoke about, it seems like Alawi, this is heavily Alawi favored. I would not be surprised one bit at all. So with one kill coming through, it could very well just be a stat check for the rest of this game.
New guy on the roster. They give him that vote of confidence. They give him that R5 pick in the draft.
Flash.
Making good on it so far. Nice sidestep for Chinese Spy, but the Curse of the Sad Mummy is going to lock down the Seraphine, and that lines up beautifully for the Vel'Koz ultimate. Though Rutledge tanking that Nature's Grasp for the jungler to get away, and Big Rev in the end is not able to do anything by himself as a lonely Maokai. So just a successful kill in the mid lane there. TFF Aftershock starting to open up a little bit of a lead.
That's right. It really is that ease of engage. If you're going to miss a bandage toss, that's okay. You still have Curse of the Sad Mummy. You just walk up, get in range, you press R, you know that Seraphine doesn't have flash. Both of those flashes were traded in the earlier sequence mid. So, good heads up play, recognize the timer. A little bit of trade coming in through bot side, but at this point right now, you can really see this bot side wave. It really just seems to me like you're just going to be pushing your waves back and forth, catching them when you can and farming up, but you can take a quick point here. Of course, you didn't get that kill on the Syndra. Instead, it did go over to Cocoa Puffs on the Amumu, but that CS lead is starting to kind of come through, and you can see that range advantage that the Syndra does offer in this bot side.
Yeah, definitely right. A little bit of a nice CS advantage for Kaora down there, like you're just mentioning, Turk. And, you know, the Syndra, of course, was also picked pretty early on in the draft, right? It was Seraphine on the B1, Syndra on the R1. It was a pretty quick response there for Aftershock to match sort of that AP carry threat. You know, the Seraphine, of course, is a huge comfort pick for Kaora, so that was like a pick away that FBR decided to go for. But so far, Kaora, you know, looking pretty good on the Syndra here as well.
He's doing a really good job with it. So far, he's able to get his first item already there. So he is at a huge item spike already. And at this point right now, it seems like this second dragon, really what it comes down to at this point is who's able to get mid push. If you do get that mid push, are you able to rotate into the river and start contesting as a team? And if so, you already have the item advantage. You just take a look at red side's items right now. All right, we have one completed, of course, for the mid and for the bot. So Rutledge and Cure are definitely strong. All the rest of the members just purely have components. So at this point right now, it seems like this dragon once again is TFF Aftershocks.
Now they're moving into the river, looking to secure some vision control over the area right now. Big Rev in position down here towards the bottom lane. Was hoping to go for a little bit of a lane gank if Kaora and or Chung Soma was going to walk up, try to get some control down there, push that wave out in anticipation of the dragon spawning, as Syndra is moving up now. Is this going to be the opportunity that Big Rev was waiting for? He does flash for it, gets the twisted advance, and now Kaora in trouble, does have his own flash, but not going to have the opportunity to cast it. Nice lockdown there from FBR. They get the kill onto the AP carry in the bot lane. Now Chong Somo putting up the door, blocking most of these Jhin bullets. The curtain call not getting a whole lot done, but it's a man advantage for final boss Rebirth as they move in, start to clear out these wards.
Kaora does have TP here, so if this fight continues to lengthen, at this point right now the TP can come in, the contest can also come through, so we're seeing one coming down right now. Of course it's going to be Kaora and the Syndra, so formation battle lines are being set.
Dragon down to about 50%. The Splinker a little bit low in the pit. The Rel is going to go for the engage. Crash down over the wall. The follow-up's a little bit delayed, though. And it's going to be the Rel who flashes away. Tries to stay alive. The Vel'Koz ultimate not quite able to finish anybody off either. But Big Rev will eventually fall. Finally, the kills start to come through. And it's TFF Aftershock getting all the last hits. The flash for the Winter's Bite. It is going to be Chunk Somo's Braum picking up the last kill in that team fight. It's the 4-0, and the Dragon massive win for TFF.
The Braum deserved it. Good for him. Chung gets a great kill at the end there, and it really does come off the back of the timing of his shield. He's just patient, and he holds it, and he holds it. And he waits for the Seraphine R to come through. As long as he's able to cancel that, more than likely the team fight can be won, and in this instance it most certainly is. So now you're onto your second drag, with of course Mountain Soul being the next one coming up, and that 4.5 minute timer. And I do want to kind of go back a little bit, talk a little bit about how that actually came to be, and I really got to give props to Big Rev. Because really, that wasn't much of your dragon to be able to play for. The patience that you had sitting in that middle bush, burning your flash to commit the kill on Kaora was excellent. The only issue was, of course, that teleport. So once that teleport does come through, the decision for you to be able to contest it becomes that much scarier. You got to decide if it's worth it. And walk Warlock once again off that solo kill, just the amount of damage that's coming through. Seaboyer's doing a great job in terms of keeping up with the CS, but the reality is that this matchup just feels so doomed for the set.
Yeah, absolutely right. You know, you pointed out the item completion for the Alawi a little bit earlier on as well, before that dragon fight. Having that Black Cleaver and inventory gives you everything you need as a Lowy, right? Health, attack damage, and that little bit of ability haste as well. Is really, really powerful into the set. But yeah, and the fact that Dragon Fight went their way as well for TFF Aftershock just means that they're in a great place now in this game. I mean, you touched on it as well. The fact that it's Mountain Soul, that is so threatening for Final Boss Rebirth. They have to really be careful about giving over any more dragons from this point. So it'd be so impossible to play, with this composition that's already lacking a little bit in terms of damage. Oh, the scatter! Fox Patronus, great timing there. Pops the barrier, survives the Syndra ultimate. We'll be able to walk away.
And both of these side lanes from TFF Aftershock.
Oh, the solo kill in the mid lane could be about to come through. Rutledge on his patented Vel'Goz finds the knock up there with the E and just the full channel on the ultimate. Another solo kill by another TFF solo laner.
Everything is on fire, crewman. Top turret just goes down. Bot turret goes down. Mid solo kill. Close to mid tier 1 as well. And this game 100% is in Aftershock's hands right now. They're doing a great job here. Of course, they have those 2 dragons. They're also going to net this Rift Herald. And at this point right now, generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of it. But when you're this far ahead, you can snowball this hard. And when it's this free, you take it. That Rift Herald could easily open up more of this map. And if they don't get this tier 1 right here with this next push off this wave, then they can most certainly drop it, play for this turret anytime that they want. And the key timer that both you and I and all the spectators watching should be paying attention to is that 2-minute mark. Anything that happens in between then and there is paper compared to this. The 2-minute timer, that soul point, is massive right now. And Aftershock doing a great job playing off this game state that their top, their bot, and their mid have given them.
Yeah, it's all the lanes stay winning for TFF so far. Bot lane has probably been the most contentious. Big Red, they have been, being able to make that pretty good impact down there towards the bottom side, but Kaora and Chung Solmo have found plenty of ways to provide great value for the rest of the team, despite maybe not being able to win out convincingly, in the laning phase. It doesn't really matter for them. And now this squad is in a great position, right? It's just 90 seconds left now until that dragon spawns. Herald's still in inventory for Cocoa Puffs. They're going to go for their resets now, make sure everybody has their wards, has those health and mana bars topped up. Everybody's got those item purchases in before they look for their Mountain Soul point.
That's right, and at this point too, you have a lot of options if you're Aftershock. In this instance right here, it looks like you're going to be able to gain access to River first. Really does come down to who has mid-prow, and in this instance it's going to be Kiora on that Syndra, so you push that wave, he has a teleport to come back. Might actually have a second item here, which is going to be amazing for this third dragon fight. But really it does come down to who's able to gain access to that river, and at the end of the day, if you don't want to play for the dragon, because you don't have to as Aftershock. Now mind you, you want to, but you don't have to. You still have that Rift Herald. You can send that anywhere that you want.
Second item completions there for both Rutledge and Kiora. They are so strong right now.
Scary.
Yeah. Chong and Cocoa Puffs moving into the enemy jungle here, securing some vision control. Positioning right now for FBR. It's looking like they might just be willing to give this one up, Turk.
I don't even know if they have much of a choice at the end of it. I don't think you can contest there's so many problems with this game state for them right now. It's like, normally speaking, you want a cross map, but who are you cross mapping into? We're setting up on a fight towards the Salawi. She can 1v4.
That's not the answer.
That's right.
That's absolutely not the answer. Okay, right, they're going to go for it. The Nature's Grasp is going to connect. They're going to try to CC the Alawi as much as possible, but this is Warlock's comfort zone, man. Look at me flashing. The flash does connect the Haymaker, and they do, in the end, have enough damage. The Splinker, the minion autos, all the realm. There's one more in the air. Does he have more than 10 HP? No! Taken down by the caster minion, and Warlock makes it happen. Gets the 1v1 in the 1v4.
Oh, just assault in the wounds, crewman. That's actually going to be a 1-for-1 top side. Of course, they net that dragon. At that point, it's free. They still have the Rift Herald to drop whenever they do want. Seaboyer is going to stay here. Looks like he is going to net this. Probably shouldn't get punished from this either. Walk does have his TP if he wants, so I guess he's not even going to grab the tier 1. No objective bounty is going to be claimed, and of course the Baron is up right now, but again, you don't have to worry too much about the Baron. You don't even have that much Baron damage if you're the side of Aftershock. That's almost a bait at this point. We just wait.
Yeah.
Nice
Oh, the
bandage
flash
toss.
from the bandage toss. Whoa, nice setup there
Beautiful.
from Cocoa Puffs. The mid-jungle synergy dialed in right now for TFF. And in the mid lane as well. The flash away will not save you from the outplay button. Kaora, another kill, number 2 for the Syndra. Herald getting dropped in the bot lane. They will get the charge into the tier 2. And yeah, this one's feeling pretty over, Turk. I don't know if there's any way for FBR to come back from here. It's feeling pretty doomed.
Well, we'll see what happens here. This could be a nice kill.
Okay, yeah, this is an interesting maneuver. Rutledge just going to flash away to try to escape, but I don't think it's actually going to work out. That's a nice knock-up, but the Q flash coming through from the Sploinker is going to guarantee that the Void Squid does go down, and that is actually a shutdown that does go over to Seaboyer.
That's an objective in and of itself. Now, you just need that to happen about 6 more times. And maybe,
only
just
6?
maybe, you have a chance.
Okay.
Maybe.
Right.
It's tough. Both teams, it's difficult for both teams to really try to sneak a Baron, so it almost has to be a decisive team fight. Something along those lines where you just choke the vision out and you actually end up setting so much vision and denying so much vision towards that Baron pit where you can take it for free, but it's not really on the table right now.
So South River here. Cocoa Puffs is actually just going to wander away from the tree as the mid lane is where the engage is happening. As Splinker goes in with the Crashdown and the Magnus from Cocoa Puffs off of the flank here is too low, and Fox Patronus is going to be able to pick off the enemy jungler, so man advantage now, but Walk Warlock moving forward. That is going to force the cancel on the curtain call. Fox Patronus going to get tagged there by the Scatter of the Week. Jin forced to make a hasty retreat here as Seaboyer moves in to join the fray. Sets a little bit late there, but Chinese Spy is there to reinforce. Walk Warlock now is the one separated from the rest of the team. Is going to get taken down by the Set, who now finds himself on his killing spree. The Showstopper as well. Seaboyer dunks the Braum, and now Rutledge is just forced to turn and run. He does manage to get one back there with the Lightform Disintegration Ray. Close fight there in the mid lane, but it is going to be the side of Final Boss Rebirth. As another Scatter connects on a big Rev, the Maokai should be able to walk away here. And yeah, that's a big fight for FBR.
It is. It is 100%. And Aftershock does give them that window. The option for the reset could have came down a lot sooner. Cocoa Puffs obviously sitting at about 1/3 HP. Rutledge fishing a little bit here. Being quite annoying, I must say. Doing quite well in this Vel'Koz. Definitely seems like a comfort pick for him that I think you and I both were not anticipating.
Yeah, clearly I think we have seen the Vel'Koz mastery shine through in this one already. Just knowing those damage thresholds really well. The geometry is clearly a point of strength for this player. So great to see.
I mean, 100%. The man's a beast right now. And right now, as we swing back into this game state right here, once again, bear for both sides really shouldn't be much of a priority. But of course, you and I both know what is. You look in that top left corner, you see that minute and 15-second timer, and that's really what both teams should be looking to play around right now. At this point, you had the option to concede the soul point. It didn't feel good, but now you most certainly almost have to contest this right now. So the question is Walk Warlock, is he able to pressure on the sides? Does Final Boss Rebirth want to try to collapse on this Alawi and concede that soul? I don't think they should, but they can. Or do they want to try to contest this right now? And it looks like they are grouping up towards this mid lane right now. An option for a pick could very well be there with the Maokai ultimate, but right now you can see this vision set up, all this priority being set up on that bot side quadrant. And TFF Aftershock's just ahead of the curve right now.
Absolutely, and not only in terms of the vision control and the setup, but in the items as well. I mean, we look at the carries here for FBR. They are still not done with their second items on either mid or AD. That's a really difficult position to be in. Seaboyer does have 2 items done on the set, but one of them is a hull breaker. You don't want to be team fighting with a hull breaker. I mean, that's just not going to work.
At this point right now, you need more time, and I just don't know if you have it. The amount of dragons that end up going down early on, look at how difficult it really is to try to retake this vision against 2 mages. The Braum, of course, having that shield.
Well,
yeah,
that
very
Scatter
nice.
connecting onto 3. The Nature's Grasp can come out very early here as Big Rev just desperate to try and find somebody out of position. They are going to be able to move in a little bit here for FBR, but Winter's Bite tagging onto Chinese Spy. It's a nice ward there in the line brush for Aftershock to continue guarding the river. It's now Seaboyer moving over, though. The Unleashed Power almost zeroes out Patronus. Kaora, though, stunned up over the wall. Big Ref going in with the twisted advance, but the follow-up just is not there because Walk Warlock on the other side of the fight is tying up the carries, flashes away from the Haymaker. Once again, the Showstopper tries to take the Alawi back towards the rest of the team, but I don't think that's where Seaboyer wanted the Alawi to be. as now the Set and the Rel have both already been taken down. The Winter's Bite there, tagging onto Seraphine, who has to flash away to stay alive. Blinking health bars for FBR. They do manage to escape with 3 members still alive. It honestly could have been worse, but in the end, I don't think it was nearly enough.
Oh, definitely was an Aftershock able to grab that dragon on top of those 2 kills. And at this point right now, the amount of gold, the items that you have, it's definitely starting to show. And of course, once you do have that set up, it feels damn near impossible for FBR to try to retake. So contesting into a team such as Vel'Koz and Syndra, if they're able to play at the range like what they do, we could see Big Rev earlier on when he burned his ultimate as early as what he did. And truthfully, that's not even so much on him. That's more or less the game state itself. That's how much pressure these players are feeling right now. And it becomes very difficult. If you don't have that option to be able to try to cross-map, which in this game you don't, cross-mapping to an Alawi feels so difficult, what options do you really have?
Yeah, it does feel like Final Boss Rebirth have pretty much run out of options at this point. I mean, we said that before, and then they found that big team fight win in the mid lane, so maybe this is the moment they were waiting for, Turkus, for us to doubt them again.
It's very possible. The question really does become whether or not Aftershock is willing to give it to them. Because I think that's the only way that it happens. I think anything else in between then and there is entirely up to Aftershock and how they want to play this out. If they want to chase for kills, they most certainly can, but this to me seems like the smartest play right now. Of course, you do have that mid-prow. You see Jin catching that wave, and as he catches that wave, the rest of the team from Aftershock swings in and starts playing for this Baron, but do take note, the damage is not that much.
Yeah, it is pretty slow, but you know, also, it's the side of FBR pretty slow to move in here. They do get a sapling in over the wall, so we're going to get a little bit of vision on the objective. They see that it's down to about 50%. Curtain call comes out, but nobody is really low. Trunks Olmo soaking up that 4th shot pretty nicely. Big Rev still trying to find a way into this pit. Does have the flash and go for the Nature's Grasp now. It's a nice engage from the Splinker. The smite is true, though, from Cocoa Puffs. The Showstopper is pretty massive from the Set, but it's going to be the side of Wuk Warlock, the difference maker in this fight. Takes out the back line. And a beautiful scatter there from Kaora as well. Creates the distance between the top laner. It's Wuk Warlock on a rampage. And it's going to be TFF Aftershock on their way to a Game 1 victory.
It's gotta be at this point right now. The death timers aren't nearly that long. Seaboyer is down for 39, but these follow-up kills that come through right now. Xiong, nice flash on the Braum, proccing that passive. They're most certainly at least gonna get 1 inhibitor off this, and it really is sad for FBR. I mean, you can see the Baron being taken. It's being done right in your face. It's taking forever to be taken. But at the end of the day, you just can't contest. You're just stat checked right now. You're outranged and you're stat checked, and this is the result that you see.
Yeah, you know, we just saw there in the aftermath as well. TFF Aftershock able to clean up those last couple of kills to complete the ace. Breaking into the base now. Mid lane will be first. Seaboy are about to respawn, but still 10 seconds on Big Rev and Chinese Spy. Looks like Aftershock are not going to over-aggress here. They will fall back and look to push another lane before really closing things out.
That's right. And if they net this tier 2 and they get their resets in, they're in a fantastic spot because, you know, we were kind of talking like, how does FBR get back into it? And if they do overstay right here, which I don't even know if that's possible at this point, there is a window for it. But the Elder.
Well, the tier 3 turret's not going to be staying for much longer. The Elder Dragon could be something that we could consider if the side of FBR do survive this siege. Encore is going to come out. That's going to tag only onto Wuk Warlock. The Crashdown does get 2. As Curtain Call coming out once again. That Alawi's pretty low. The 4th shot taking her extremely low. Shutdown going over to the Seraphine. Could this be the overstay? Another kill going over to FBR. Trunks Olmo trying to hold the door. Kaora moving forward. Desperate to at least get 1 back in the fight. Will not be able to. Double kill over to Fox Patronus on the Jhin. And maybe TFF Aftershock have just given their opponents a window to come back in.
Now, they haven't got the Elder, of course. There's still that 2-minute timer, but it gives them tempo. FBR, if they're able to push out these waves, they can start getting vision set up in this bot side, start prepping this objective up. In reality, it's just an overextension from Aftershock. They should have taken that tier 2, they should have got their resets and then played for tempo, got the vision set up on that Elder, because at this point right now, it doesn't look like FBR is going to be able to translate this just yet. But if that vision does come in, if a pick comes through, that could turn a potential 50-50 fight into more of like an 80-20. So the windows are still there with that overextension. They are going to net themselves an objective bounty off of that too. So definitely by no means are they out of this. Again, I think it's just Aftershock whether or not they choose to overextend, and if they do, what ends up happening as a result. And in this instance right here, nothing too crazy, but you can already see the Rel starting to move. The Sploinker, he's doing a good job prepping up some at least neutral vision here so you can spot the enemy as they do start to set up. You do want to see the rest of the team get out on this map though, really hard push this mid wave so you can contest this Elder, because if you get this, even if it's a flip, there's a chance that you can actually clean house.
Yeah, the Elder is the great equalizer, right? The buff that is almost a win condition in and of itself. So that is a possibility for FBR. They have made it this late in the game, 40 seconds until the aforementioned Elder Dragon does make its way onto Summoner's Rift, and they have enough control to move into the river here and try to get themselves into a decent position. Seaboyer, though, they're not going for a recall, doesn't quite have the teleport available just yet. Wok Warlock does, and the Alawi right now splitting in the side lane. The rest of the team can just play time around the objective here. They don't have to start a fight or do anything hasty. They can just wait for Alawi to start pressuring the base and force their opponents to make a move, and it looks like that move is going to be for the side of FBR to back away and defend the base, but at what cost?
Well, that's it. They're actually sending the Seraphine too, and they know Seaboyer cannot match this Alawi, but the truth is nobody can. So the best thing that you can hope for is to clear those waves. If you can, you get Chinese Spy to TP in, but that doesn't mean Wok has to.
Scatter over the wall. There is Rutledge moving in here on the Vel'Koz. He's going to get CC'd up. A Trunks almost dashes over. Beautiful Glacial Fissure onto 2. It is Fox Patronus at least able to help take one down. Takes down the junglers there as well as a Killing Spree actually comes through. But Wok Warlock has teleported in. Alawi, the newcomer on TFF Aftershock, looking to be the difference maker. The scatter connects for Kaora. The flash forward for Wok Warlock connects the Test of Spirit. Gets the tentacles down onto the Jhin as well. This Alawi, just an absolute raid boss, cannot be dealt with even by the entirety of the squad. Wok Warlock, though, Seaboyer and Chinese Spy are enough to finally take down the Alawi. A miracle team fight, honestly, for FBR. They make a heroic stand around the Elder Dragon. They are now playing with 2 inhibitors down, and the Elder still alive.
An objective bounty Elder. Very rarely do you get to see that. That just really shows you the game state that FBR are in. But once again, they bounce back, and they do a great job there. I'm not entirely sure what ended up happening with Rutledge there, but they had the priority in that river, and then they chose to walk into the choke, if I'm not mistaken. And as soon as they did there, they got collapsed on. They got focused. All the AoE that came through. You could even just see, like, one example would be the Rel knockup hitting 3 members. The rest of the AoE getting layered on top. And that's a team fight that's really hard to win, even if you're this far ahead. So the good news, Aftershock, once again, they do have the retake, they do have the prile. However, they are just starting this right now. Seaboyer does have his TP, he's going to burn it mid.
Yeah, here comes the set once again. FBR, can they make it happen again? Strong Soma rooted up on the front lines. The Deadly Flourish connects. Braum potentially in trouble. Puts off the door. Manages to back away. Nature's Grasp coming out here. Only really connects onto the support. I guess the Vel'Koz as well, but too far away to follow up on. And now it's the side of FBR trying to burn down the objective. I think a Smite fight maybe they feel like is the best that they can hope for, but Big Reb getting engaged on the Maokai, forced to go in. The Dragon being burned down, and Maokai was too far away to go for the 50-50. The Elder now has gone over. Cocoa Puffs flashes for the bandage toss. I don't know if the Amumu has another one. Might not be able to chase down the carries right now. It's all the scatter barely connects onto Chinese Spy. Kaora cleans up the kill. It's going to be 4 for nothing, and it's going to be TFF Aftershock securing the Game 1 victory.
And I'm going to be honest, FBR, it looked so good at the start there. They were holding him off at the choke, not letting them get into river, but as soon as Aftershock pushed through, you could see FBR, they begin to scatter. 2 members are heading towards the choke, 3 members are fighting the dragon, and this is the exact result right here. At the end of the day, it's a lengthier game than what you and I both expected. Throws coming in a few times here and there, but overall pretty well played from Aftershock at the end of the day. Just a couple hiccups, some things that could be fixed and easily kind of tweaked, but you gotta say, I mean, you gotta really give it to Aftershock for playing the game the way that they did. And I'll be honest, I was the first one to doubt their team comp. I didn't like all the AP that they drafted, but they made it work really well, especially if you can win all 3 of your lanes in isolation without the assistance of too much jungling at all. And the Amumu did what he was supposed to do. Cocoa Puffs just kind of farmed up. He denied the red off the first level 3 gank that came through from Big Rev. And it was a good heads up play. They do what they can off that instance, but like I mentioned, if Aftershock's solo lanes are able to do what they're doing in that instance right there, getting all the pressure, then the game itself should probably be done.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it felt like TFF Aftershock had a very clear idea of how they wanted to play this one out with their draft that was a little bit unorthodox, right? As you mentioned, you know, Rutledge making the return to the mid lane here for the first time here in season 12. Really, you know, you could tell I was able to hit the ground running alongside Cocoa Puffs there. The mid jungle synergy working out beautifully for him. Warlock with a fantastic impact with his first week in the top lane for the squad up there. And yeah, overall, I'm just really impressed. I tried to mention briefly earlier on, Turk, you know, the fact that we saw TFF Aftershock earlier on in the season, and they were like really kind of impressive in these scrappy fights, but the macro game is really what I felt like they were lacking. You know, they didn't really have as much control around these objectives, and we're kind of sometimes really struggling to, you know, secure good positions in situations where maybe they should have been able to. But I feel like they've really tidied that up, you know, with the roster changes and with the continued practice they've had, you know, up to this point in the season. They're looking much better in that regards. But what's jumping out at you, Turk, here in the stats page in the post-game screen?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I think you really got to hand it to Rutledge on this Vel'Koz, the amount of KP that man ended up pulling through at the end of the day with that Vel'Koz. It really starts to show itself there, and he did a great job. You even look at the damage too on top of that 40k damage, so there's no doubt that Vel'Koz was a menace when it came to this game. So both mages did a great job. The only real hiccup that we saw coming in from Aftershock, realistically, besides a couple like funny little deaths, taking the Rift Herald bot side, crashing into the tier 3, is like, okay, you can understand that. It really was just though, after you get the Baron, you get the mid inhib, and then you swing topside, play for the tier 2, but then also overextend on that tier 3, and it gave a small window for FBR to try to set up and get some priority on that dragon, but at the end of the day, they weren't able to translate on that in Aftershock. They just came out very clutch off the back of their solos coming out ahead just in isolation for the most part. And of course their macro game, like what we talked about, stacking those dragons really became evident how impactful it became to be.
Absolutely the case. You know, for the side of Final Boss Rebirth, it definitely, you know, they wanted to try to get to those team fighting positions with this composition, right? They really wanted to sort of mitigate any damage that might be happening in those solo lanes. And you know, there were a couple of moments that you had called out for us a moment ago, Turk, where, you know, they were able to find those angles despite being so far behind, thanks to maybe a couple of overextensions from Aftershock. But last order of business here for this game number one, Turk, is our POG. You know, you already highlighted Rutledge on the Vel'Koz, did top out those damage charts, had a phenomenal impact in the fights. Is that your POG, or would you look elsewhere?
I'd have to give it to him for sure. Honestly, at the end of the day, crewman, I think the man just played extremely well. He did what he needed to do. He pretty much had perma mid prow the whole time. Translated that into a really solid KDA, really solid damage charts too. So I think when it comes to POG, there's other members that you can make an argument for. The main other one would be Warlock, the amount of pressure that he absorbed in that isolated matchup. And of course, if you save that R5 for your top laner, that's what you hope for, but he most certainly delivered there. So Warlock did great, especially with his debut in his first game. But really, when it came down to it, I think the real decision maker, the deciding factor was Rutledge on the Vel'Koz.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Warlock is probably where my vote would go, but definitely both of those soul laners for Aftershock had a great showing here in game number one, as did the rest of the squad. That's going to do it for our first game of the night, guys. We're going to do a short break, and then when we come back, game champion select for game number two.
See you soon.
All right, BOL fans, welcome back to the stream here as we jump into our game number 2 champion select. We are, of course, swapping sides for this game. TFF Aftershock are going to be on the blue side this time around. We will have FBR with their own opportunity to go for that R5 counterpick, Turk.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And of course, if you didn't get the side select, I was still hoping that FBR was going to be able to grab this red, but of course, in this instance, it's going to swap anyway, so I think this is going to heavily favor them. We're already seeing a Cho'Gath hover here for B1. If that gets locked in, I'll be a little surprised. This one makes a lot more sense to me. Sejuani, you can flesh that out with a lot of different champions, but generally from the B2, B3, expect to see more of a melee support and or a melee solo laner. So something that you can really sync that Sejuani passive up with, and it becomes, your skirmishes just become that much easier now. You really can just kind of slot that champion into whatever team comp you want.
Absolutely right. Turk, were you already informed about the fearless nature of our drafting here in BOL?
True fearless, if I'm not mistaken.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So the Sejuani coming through here, I think, is even less surprising than it otherwise would be, which would, of course, also be not very surprising. But because the Maokai and the Amumu are both ineligible, thanks to being present in the previous game, Sejuani is kind of left with that premier kind of tanky, engaged jungler, right? So that makes a lot of sense coming through for TFF here on the B1. Zach looks like the response. So, you know, a similar vein, right? A jungler that can be very tanky with strong engage.
Yeah, that's exactly it right now. And if you're going to go pound for that, I'd almost argue that Zach can make that difference. It also helps, too, that Zach is a flex pick, so you can kind of hold that on. But right now, we see that Poppy hover. If that Poppy is locked, you can almost certainly assume that's going top. You do have the option to send that support as well if you want. But the Poppy pick, to me, already screams, like, huge value. So, looks like the Veigar is going to be picked instead. It's not like you can't really go wrong with the Cage either. And if they get the Poppy, too, that's even better.
I mean, that's such a fun combo, right? Being able to have the Veigar Cage, the Event Horizon, and then you can have Poppy charge people into the side of the cage. That could be a really fun interaction for Aftershock to try and go for. But one other thing to call out in regards to the Sejuani is the fact that Cocoa Puffs actually had a pretty phenomenal game on that Sejuani in game number 2 last week against Maelstrom. That was 7-2 and 14 for Cocoa Puffs on the Sejuani in that game last week. So this is not only, you know, a strong meta pick in regards to what's already been removed, but also a big comfort pick for Cocoa Puffs as well. And it is going to be the Alistar instead of the Poppy, so another option for knocking people into cages.
Yeah, that's exactly it right here. And of course, the Braum is taken. Braum tending to be one of those, like, tried and true, like, counters into that Alistar. But it looks like we are going to see the R3 coming in for Mordekaiser. Don't be surprised to see a couple top bans. That Olaf hover makes the most sense to me. The Olaf ban should be coming through right now, because I was thinking myself that's what I would be looking to pick. So that does come through, and wouldn't be surprised one bit. But interesting R3 here, of course. You do grab the Varus. For the longest time, the Varus was like the staple ADC that you could pick all of the time. I know anytime that my team was playing, you could ask my ADC. He could assure you that when it came down to it, B1, we were always picking Varus. And in this instance right here, it looks like they're going to be happy to grab this here. So FBR grab the Varus, they grab the Mordekaiser. It's just really at this point, what does Aftershock decide to do? How do they adapt to this Mordekaiser? Because we saw what happened in game 1.
Yeah, the Mordekaiser is definitely an interesting pick, one that I feel like has found a lot of success recently, you know, at least in this league here in BOL Emerald. So that is going to be fun to see how he does this time around, if that is going to be enough for Seaboyer to, you know, have a better performance in the 1v1 against Walk Warlock. But the Varus pick, you know, like you were just discussing as well, is a really interesting one. This is another champion that's seen some pretty significant changes in the not too distant past. You know, Riot really, I think, you know, their professed direction for where they wanted to take the champion was they wanted to sort of mitigate the lethality builds and maybe make those a little bit less potent. So, you know, make the lane bully Varus less of a thing and sort of shift him more towards those on-hit variety of builds. But what are your feelings about the Varus just in general? I mean, you said he used to be like B1
That's
every
right.
game, but what do you feel about the power level of Varus now, just, you know, overall?
Well, as long as you can draft frontline that can create space for him and you have targets to hit, it's going to be okay. So you really got to look at Aftershock's team comp, and at the end of the day right now, they have 2 melees, so the Varus to me doesn't seem too bad at all. It's just you get outranged by, and actually, and for the record, this Veigar, if I'm not mistaken too, it also can be a flex too. So they can actually pivot and send that Veigar towards that bot side if they do want to try to outrange that Varus, but I don't think the Varus is too bad here. I feel like it's okay. It's just, can you keep him safe?
Hmm.
The
Well,
Bard
in
Huff is
that vein,
interesting. We are
yeah.
going to get the Bard. Okay.
And you've been a little bit of a Bard player yourself in the past, if I'm not mistaken, sir.
I have been, yeah. No, Bard's an awesome champion. I mean, he's feast or famine. You got to be feeling yourself to be able to pull him out, especially in a comp game. Like, I play Bard, but I'll play him in solo queue or I'll play him in norms with my buddies. I usually don't pick him in comp too often, and there's a reason for it. But if you're feeling yourself, you're confident with it, you can pick it. The Bard does do really well into isolation against that Alistar. You have all the prow that you could ever want with Alistar's early laning phase. It's just so atrocious. We are going to see the Darius locked in, but of course with that Bard too, you do actually have those roams on that Alistar. So the Darius coming through, that's spicy. That right there is already saying, like, give me that. If you're going to R3 Mordekaiser, you can double ban top, but I still have more to pull out.
Yeah, and the Darius is an old favorite of Wak Warlock as well. I saw him pull it out many times back in the Platinum League.
So there you go.
So I feel like he's going to be pretty comfortable in that matchup against the Mordekaiser. And there is the Sylas coming through on the B5. So that is, likely a blind pick for the mid lane over there that we do see for Rutledge. And now it's going to be really interesting. What is this last R5 pick going to be? They're going to give it to Chinese Kai.
Is it Galio? Galio isn't bad here either. Galio does do quite well into the Sylas. But I was hoping to see something more like a Cassiopeia. Hwei also works too. Yeah, if you just want to try to clear the waves, get all that prow mid, and then try to translate that with your Zac, you can absolutely do that. So you can really see you have 4 melees stacked in with the Sedge on the side of Aftershock, which makes for a really strong skirmish team comp. However, the issue that you do have is your siege. And at this point, you really have no siege, so you want to play really heavy around neutrals. If you're able to do that, start stacking your drags like what we saw in Game 1, then hopefully we'll be able to translate that into more teamfight wins after you win teamfights when the later on the game goes with the higher death timers. Then of course you'll be able to play for more of those neutrals, but not much siege coming in from the side of Aftershock at all.
That's very fair. That's definitely very fair. And I think that's not really, in their defense, that's not really how they played things out in Game 1 either, right? It, in large part, came down to what they were able to make happen in the solo lanes, and they're fighting around objectives. So I do think that their composition is going to be relatively well suited for that sort of thing once again here. If they do get into a position where they need to be sieging onto turrets to really, continue pushing forward the pace of the game, I absolutely agree that could be really, really difficult for them. But we'll see if the side of FBR is going to manage to sort of stabilize things and force their opponents to really break them open in that way. Could look really good for them, for the side of FBR. But let's sort of widen the mid lane conversation. You already discussed the way Sylas matchup for us to a reasonable extent. But let's sort of broaden that conversation to include the junglers as well. The Zac and the Sejuani obviously are two options that can be very strong at ganking and making an early impact in these lanes. Do you feel like the mid lane is going to be the location where they might try to have that early impact, or are you expecting something else from the junglers? Maybe just playing more towards those mid game fights again? Or
I think if there's any sort of early pressure being set up by these junglers, it's probably going to be top. Just looking at the most volatile lane, I mean, a Darius and a Mordekaiser seems to be that one right then and there. I completely agree with you. I think the Sejuani especially is a really good early game jungler, can facilitate that, and you want to be ganking to your solos too, because of course you have both of those melees in that Sylas, and of course the Darius, so you can once again stack that Sejuani passive, so you've got that right then and there. So Sejuani early on will definitely have the prio for that. You have that counter pick as in the Darius into that Mordekaiser, so I think that's where Aftershock will be focusing on. If Rebirth tries to match that, I think they could be in a lot of trouble. Zac really does need a bit of time. He's fairly strong early, but it's not really at level 3 is when he comes online. He comes online at level 5 with 3 points in his E. That's when he can start to fish for all these ganks from outside of those vision lines where people tend towards. So Zac's one of those champions that can really morph a game around him. He's really good at that, kind of similar to like an Evelyn. So in that regard at the very least, so it really does change up your warding patterns and how you track the jungle. So knowing where that Zac is, if something doesn't happen within the first clear itself, so going on to that second clear when both junglers are getting closer to their level 5s, then I would favor the Zac. But of course, I really do think that Aftershock is going to be looking to try to get something going in that top side as much as they can.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I guess last thing to discuss really would be the bottom lane. You know, the fact that we've talked about the Vhagar did end up going down towards that bottom side, like you predicted for us a little bit earlier on in the draft, Turk. It's going to be paired up alongside the Alistar down there, so we're going to see some potential event headbutting combos happening down there towards the bottom side. But the big question for me in this matchup is going to be how much does the Bard actually want to stay in the lane and fight out that 2v2, right? Because that's always the question with Bard. You know, when you're paired up alongside the Varus into a Vhagar Alistar lane, it feels like a winnable 2v2 for Varus Bard, right? But is that actually going to be the angle they go for?
And that really is the question at the end of the day, right? With that Vhagar, of course, you do have that teleport, which generally speaking means that you're going to be more of a weak-sided laner. So, of course, you want to try to match that 2v2 and really pressure that Vhagar, deny the scaling that, of course, that champion does have. Because, of course, you do have the much stronger early game when it comes to Varus Bard. That Alistar level 1 is basically non-existent. He does not become a champion really until about level 3, so if you're able to pressure and punish them really hard before that point, then you've already won your lane for at least the first back, probably the second back too. So that's the question right there. Do you look to try to push your advantage bot side, or the Bard, even having the roaming advantage too, able to get around the map that much quicker than the Alistar? Do you look to try to impact your lanes? And if that's the case, if you do see the Bard roaming, then expect a lot of attention being put towards mid.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we shall see what does end up coming through. Do you have a favorite draft this time around, Turk? You know, last game, if I recall correctly, you did go for the final boss rebirth prediction. Don't feel too bad. You know, our regular co-caster here in Emerald is notoriously not very great at making predictions also. So you're in good company here, Turk. Do not worry about it whatsoever. We even actually have a little bit of a bet going to see if my regular co-commentator or his cats are going to be able to make more correct predictions over the course of the season. So we can sort of add you into the mix there as well to do some percentages at the end of the season to see who's actually going to be able to get the edge there. But what are you thinking with these compositions for game 2?
It's a good question. I mean, really, at the end of the day there, Mr. Crewman, what I'm thinking right now is like Aftershock's team comp to me seems to be of the stronger. Of course, you have that counter pick in that top side. If you are able to accelerate that, the Sejuani pick, like I said, really does fit into any team comp that you want, and especially so if you draft around that with those 4 melees we talked about. It they don't have a lot of siege. They also don't have wave clear, which is something that we missed talking about entirely. They have very little wave clear at all, so contesting mid waves or trying to deny the enemy team from sieging is going to be a problem. However, if they get grouped up, they get set up in river and play for neutrals, I think their team comp will come online and quite quickly. So I'm going to have to give it to them, and hopefully I can boost your buddy's percentage here.
Hopefully, I'm sure he'd really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, TFF Aftershock, they do, of course, have the momentum after picking up the win in game number 1 as well. But Final Boss Rebirth were the stronger team on paper coming into today, and I'm sure they would love to be able to pick up a win, over a team that was below them in the standings. You know, we only have 7 weeks here of the round robin before we get towards playoffs. So every single win, every single game really counts here in the Emerald League. We'll see if TFF Aftershock are going to be able to complete a crazy 2-0 upset tonight, or if Final Boss Rebirth will take us to that game number 3. See you on the Rift.
See you soon.
right, everybody, welcome back onto the good old Rift of Summoning for our second game of the night. TFF Aftershock, after picking up the win in game number 1. Took them just over 30 minutes. They are now going to be on the blue side for this second one. And, of course, at final boss, Rebirth, looking to turn things around from the red.
They most certainly are right now, and it looks like at the end of the day, while they didn't get the best pick for themselves in the top lane, their mid and their bot seem to be their strong suits here for this game. So how this plays out, this again is going to kind of left to be decided, but nevertheless, you're going to have priority in mid, you're going to have priority in bot, which means, of course, you have that shove, and if you have that shove, you can rotate and start to make plays with the rest of your team. So how well does the Sploinker, on the Bard do? When it comes to his roam timers, does he look to even roam? Does he look to pressure this bot lane as much as possible? Those were the questions that we were asking in draft, and those still remain the major questions when it comes to the game itself. And cheeky poke, one more auto.
Yeah,
Nice.
Fox needed in there for it. Absolutely. Of course,
Got it.
Alistar, though, not really looking to do much at level 1, so just the passive HP regen. Probably going to just fine there for Chong. And, speaking of Sploinker and the possible strategies for the Bard, did go for the Guardian for Sploinker. So that does indicate to me that most likely we are going to be playing a little bit more for the 2v2. Get some value out of that Guardian.
I'd agree as well here, and you can already see this priority being established here from the Bard. Splinker doing a pretty good job when it comes to this, just starting to push them out. The Varus has the exact same thing, so this level 1 from both of these champions is that strong, and then of course, equally so on Aftershock, you just do need to respect this, let the wave come back to you, and then just farm it up when you can, but this priority already being established. The one thing I do want to take quick note of course, is going to be the junglers and where they're starting. Cocoa Puffs, while we talked about it in the draft itself, I thought, and maybe we both thought that he's going to be playing more towards his top side, but in this instance right now, it looks like he's pathing towards bot while Big Rev is setting up to path towards top.
Yeah, maybe just feeling confident that Walk Warlock's going to be able to hold his own up there and, not really feeling the need to make an early impact towards that top side. It could be the thought process. Ooh, yeah, actually.
This makes more sense.
Absolutely right. Looking for the play in the mid lane as Chinese Spy is going to flash away. Still gets hit by the Arctic Assault. The Abduct is going to miss, though, for Rutledge. And that means they're not quite going to have enough damage to finish off the way. They do get the flash, though.
That's huge. Burning that summoner on that way is massive. Now Rutledge can constantly threaten that all in, especially with that Aftershock. You can really see that come through. So Cocoa Puffs on that transition gank was really nice towards mid. You might have been able to play in for those Raptors with the priority that you got set up. And look at the damage, coming through in that isolation.
Oh, plus the Walk Warlock, baby! Starting off early in game 2, the solo kill at 3 minutes into the game.
Okay. He does not need a jungler. Do not path
He
to the
does
man.
not.
He is A-okay. He's going to pull that out, and that was clutch. I'll be honest, I did not see the kill angle there myself, but he obviously did. He pulled trigger, and before he knew it, I think it was just at level 4, he leveled up his Q twice. I think it was just right before that timer, and then just ended up flashing and netting it right there with the bleed stacks, and that's your first blood. Just like that.
Absolutely. Just like that. And, Walk Warlock as well. When he was playing in the Plat League, he was on Agni Kai. And that was the main playstyle for that team as well. They were always playing through their solo lanes and looking to get advantages there and transition those into the mid game. Use those solo lane advantages to win out in team fights and create pressure in the side lanes. Walk Warlock has brought that with him to this squad here. And Emerald Fox Patronus now in trouble. There is a passage there from the Bard, but the Varus can't get in there in time. And Kiora is going to be able to pick up his first of the game on the Veigar.
Yeah, and only the Ignite being burned. No flashes at all from either side. So a gank could most certainly come through for sure. And that's just clean. That's a really nice 2-kill start here. Just 4.5 minutes in as well.
I mean, Varus had both summoners there, Turk. Do you feel like maybe if he burned those summoners, there would have been some way for Fox to get away from that one?
If you just flash the Pulverize, I think there's definitely a chance. The Q coming through just missing from Big Rev, and Walk Warlock should be able to walk this one off, or just 1v2 if he wants.
I mean, is going to be able to back away underneath the tier 1 here. The Darius was just too far back in the lane for Big Rev to really look for the angle. I mean, maybe they just wanted to get the wave pushed in. At least if that was the goal, then they were successful.
Yeah, and everything you can see in mid lane really does come off the back of Cocoa Puffs with that transition gank there as he swung through mid and he burned the flash on the way. That is huge. And the headbutt pulp does come in. A little bit of chunk.
Blank is just going to go on a journey. Totally
Bard,
fine.
one of those pretty annoying champions at the end of the day. Feels like you're pretty safe on that champ almost no matter what you do, but that mid prow has actually swung quite a bit, even from that gank. Now you can see with this, as long as that Silas has his flash, the all-in can always be threatened. And with both mid laners taking their resets, mid is in a great spot now for Rutledge. It's going to push back to him. He's going to be able to just relax, wait for the wave to come, and at that point, he's going to be that much stronger, closing out his level 6. And that could very well be the timer when they look to pull trigger once again.
Yeah. Rutledge is going to use the teleport here to maintain that priority in the mid lane, make sure that he's able to consistently have that pressure. You know, the dragon has spawned now. We're a few seconds away on our first spawn of grubs as well. Neither jungler making a move towards either one of those objectives just yet.
That's right. We do see bot here. We do have a nice wave stacked up, and you can see Aftershock is slowly starting to push towards them, trying to thin this wave out while they can. Rutledge taking a nice trade in mid.
Yeah, level 6 advantage for the Silas right now. He's going to be able to steal away that Spiraling Despair. Not going to commit with it just yet, though.
And this mid lane really does feel quite bad at this point for Chinese Spy, and it really is a bit unfortunate right now. We haven't seen much impact coming in from the rest of his team to try to support him, so truthfully he is on a bit of an island at this point right now. We can see a lot of the resources being invested towards that bot side, right? Once again, we have the Zac hovering in the area. One thing to take note of, if this does work, it's going to be awesome, because they definitely need to be able to find a kill right now, because they're not pressuring the neutral. They're not playing for this dragon. So at this point right
connect
now,
in the mid lane. This is going to be the stolen way ultimate. Shirley is about to come out here. Oh, just barely. Rutledge sending that one a bit far to the right. And that is going to mean Chinese Spy will survive, but Wei still missing both of those summoners. There is at least the level 6 mark. Chinese Spy still struggling in the 1v1.
Yeah, Cocoa Puffs is just around the corner, taking those raptors. After that wrap, he can look. We do see Big Rev, though. He's starting to move towards this mid lane. I think they're kind of sniffing something out, and Chinese Spy definitely should be hovering
looks like
towards his
Aftershock. They are going to look here. The Q flash, it's beautifully set up from Cocoa Puffs. They take down the way for the first time. Big Rev arrives into the mid lane to find his mid laner already gone. Meanwhile, on the bot side, Splinker rather, is going to have to flash away. Will survive. The hail of arrows connecting onto Chung. Not quite enough damage to finish off the cow.
I like Sprinkler more.
I'm glad you liked it.
Maybe we'll stick with that.
I hope the player liked it too.
Yeah, no, we can't do that to him, but it was funny for good comic relief. But hey, at the end of the day, we are going to see once again another kill coming through, and that was nice to be able to pick up Chinese Spy on that, just recognizing that flash timer. Of course, now that he does have his flash, he can start to play that much more up, but it feels like the early game when you really had that advantage just isn't there now, and the chains do land. Another chunk. Look at that damage. Oh
man, yeah, Rutledge is really starting to put out some abuse here in the mid lane.
Yeah, he sure
I mean,
is.
Silas and mages, right? It's personal.
There's no doubt. Like, look at it. The man's on a mission. He's just absolutely tearing mid up right now, and he still needs to reset. He probably has quite a bit of gold on him right now at this point.
So we're thinking about ganking a Darius right now. I'm a little bit afraid.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't
I would
do
advise against, personally. He does have both summoners and a level advantage as well. Okay, Splinker is here too. Are 3 people enough to gank the Darius? What do we think?
Well, they're doing a good job. They're doing a good job recognizing the wave, right? They're playing off this because
okay, here they go. Warlock immediately going to pop the Ghost to try and outplay this one. The first Q from the Zac is going to miss, and yeah, the Warlock's just going to walk away.
I mean, no harm done at all. You burn a Ghost to be able to dodge that. That's a lot of resources spent from the side of FBR. They're not able to find that, and equally so, I love this cross map coming in. You can see the Alistar sitting in that tri-bush. Cocoa Puff's doing the same thing. 100% a dive is coming through.
Unfortunately, Kaora can't exactly push this wave very quickly. He is a Vhagar, so it's going to take a minute. And Sejuani is going to at least be able to move in here, and they actually have a very small wave to work with as well. It's only 3 minions here to try to make this dive happen. Fox Patronus immediately going to go for the Chain of Corruption. In comes the jungler as well. Big Rev with the CC, with the Disruption, but Rutledge with the control from mid lane. The Silas has roamed over. Let's Bounce comes out from Big Rev for the disengage. Chinese Spy now has managed to arrive towards this bottom side of the map as well. Cosmic Binding connects onto the Vhagar. Chong Solmo escorting the AP carry out to safety, and nobody goes down.
Nobody goes down. At the end of the day, Patronus, the only thing that he really does miss is that wave. Probably about 8 to 9 CS, which still huge difference at the end of the day. So quite good. Now his wave state, of course, is pushing away from him, so he's in that much more trouble. It's not like he's out of the woods just yet, but that's a good heads-up play. I mean, if the cross map's going to come through topside to try to kill Walk, The only thing that he
Red
burns is a
pull
ghost.
for Chong. It's going to be Bard in a cage now, and that is the Primordial Burst. Locked and loaded and fired for Kaora. Veigar picks up number 2.
Bit more follow-up. As long as this wave gets in, they should be in a really good
stack.
state, but Big Rev recognizes this too.
All right, here comes big ol' Rev. Gonna get in there with the slingshot. Stretchy strikes. Does connect only on support. Veigar still, without the ultimate, able to get out a decent amount of damage there, and Trunks Solmo is gonna be able to walk that one off.
Yeah, this cage is going to have such high value this game, especially, we harped on it before, but it's definitely worth mentioning again. If we are going to focus a lot towards the bot side, it's much better to have those Merc Treads on. Of course, the Zac, probably the Bard, but the Bard Swifties does make some sense, but that cage is going to have
right
such
in the
an
top
impact.
side. Seaboyer goes for the Death Realm onto Walk Warlock. Still holding on to the Flash for now. Does flash away from that next Obliterate. Now Darius emerges from the Death Realm with max passive stacks. Seaboyer still holding on to the Flash, though, respecting the power of the Darius. In comes Cocoa Puffs. Glacial Prison, a possibility for the Sejuani. Walk Warlock just going to get that wave shoved in. Yeah, in comes Big Rev. The big collapse coming out here for FBR as well. Cocoa Puffs going to get pulled back by the Death's Grasp, but the Apprehend brings Zac underneath the turret. Oh, but at least he does have the pass. He doesn't get executed right away, but I don't think they're going to be able to save the Bloblets. Cocoa Puffs picks up the kill onto the enemy jungler. The Glacial Prison as well. It connects onto the Splinker Bard, now in trouble. And look at Trunks Solmo creating all this disruption. The massive collapse from all 5 members of TFF Aftershock into the top lane, and it works out beautifully for him.
It sure does. That's a bit of a taste of your own medicine, isn't it? If you invest that many resources top again for what, the second, if not third time, if the enemy team matches that in this instance, they do. And Walk Warlock just does a good job biding his time, being as patient as he can. The rest of his team swings up. As they fight, the fight continues to extend, and then before you know it, the rest of his team is there, and they're able to collapse and pick things off. And this game right now is just really going from bad to worse. It seems like each play, Aftershock is just outmatching and outpacing FBR right now, and it really shows in that scoreboard up to about a 4K gold lead at 12.5 minutes. Kind of scary, crewman.
Absolutely. If you're an FBR fan, you are terrified right now. I mean, it's even Fright Night Veigar. I think Kaora has the new skin. It's absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, I saw him run out of base, and I was going to say something earlier, but it did not look like Veigar. I'll leave it at that.
Look at him.
But,
look how spooky he is.
Oh, yeah. That's a good Spooktober skin for sure. That's awesome. I love that one.
Yeah.
That is great.
And, you know, skin choice aside.
Do you think that's why you picked Veigar?
Oh, maybe. You know, it's hard to. I mean, we're talking about just like the power of mages right now in general. You know, after the item changes in the bot lane. But you know what? I'm gonna go with yes. I think he did pick it for this. It's gotta be. It's gotta be.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one thing to note very quickly after this.
Yeah, we'll get back to that in a moment, Turk, as the chains are going to be denied by a tempered fate, and then the Bard is going to immediately die. Back to you, Turk.
Back to me. I was going to say both teams haven't really been prioritizing these dragons at 13.5, getting close to that 14-minute mark to get the second drag. That's not the fastest timer, but at this point right now when you're 9-0, you're this far ahead, you're going to be A-okay, even if it's going to be a little bit of a slower soul. So right now being able to get this up for free is great. Feels like the rest of the map is yours as well, and I think they've done a really good job here actually swapping their bot. Kiora, just sending him towards that mid lane now. He's going to be able to farm relatively safely, especially with that cage. I don't really see anybody closing that gap on him anytime soon. Well, equally so you can see Rutledge starting to pressure in this 1v1. The Hui's basically out of the game at this point, and it really did come down to the first, like, 3 minutes. Ooh, beautiful engage.
Big Rev. Yeah, it's going to be Chong in trouble. Tries to flash away. Oh, the disruption from the Zac means that Alistar doesn't get hit by the piercing arrow, but he's still not going to be able to get away. It ends up being the Splinker who picks up the last hit, though, as the Glacial Prison connects onto Chinese Spy underneath the turret, and the poor Wade. Oh, but the last turret shot comes through, and Wade does at least manage to get on the board with his first kill of the game. A silver lining at best. Rutledge, though, now behind enemy lines, but Big Rev can't do anything to the Silas by himself.
Oh, not at all. And that 1-for-1 is the best case scenario for Chinese Spy right there, and he does a great job burning the flash, just buying time. Walk Warlock, though.
Wait, Seaboyer is in trouble here once again. Does have the Death Realm. Well, actually, is just going to be able to walk it off underneath the turret. Seemed scary for a second there. Darius doesn't have the Fright Night skin, though, so it should be totally
not too scary. Just scary enough. Yeah, I mean, what do you do right now if you're FBR? Where is your win con? You're trying to figure that out. You're trying to get things established, and at the end of the day, you really only have one item completed for the side of FBR right now. It's going to be Chinese Spy. He's sitting on that black fire now at this point, so at least we've got some damage there. Rylai's is great to have on Seaboyer. It just doesn't feel like it's as much of an impact, but building on that haunting guys now, you've got the components for the second one. At least you're starting to get somewhere, but it's tough. It's tough, Groom, and I feel like I'm grasping at straws right now, trying to help FBR, trying to find a way for them to get back into it. Well, Aftershock's just done such a good job of controlling this early game and then translating it into all these neutrals and everything else in between.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty similar to what we saw from Aftershock in game number 1 as well, right? The fact that they're able to get these leads, in all these lanes, Cocoa Puffs being really active on the map and securing all these objectives for the squad, and it just feels pretty clinical.
It really does, though, doesn't it? I mean, you can even see them now starting to move in as a unit. You can see Chong like hovering towards Cocoa Puffs. They have this Rift Herald, so they can drop that whenever they want. Once again, we're paying attention to those timers for the neutrals. It's going to be about 2.5 before that next dragon is up. So both teams more than likely going to be bouncing waves unless they want to really try to strong side Rutledge here on the Silas. You can see him move in. Just the amount of agency that this man has right now is so much, sitting at that 3-0 score line. So really hard to deal with this Silas, and looks like this probably is a tier 1. Cheeky
You're
little.
go for the Tempered Fate. You had to buy a little bit more time for the side of FBR's tier 1 turret, but it's still going to go down. In goes Big Rev with the engage, but the Zack's not that tanky. He's a little bit too far behind. Doesn't have any resistances yet for Big Rev. He's going to be able to back away, though. We have Seaboyer is teleported in for this one, but the Mordekaiser is not really able to make much of an impact.
No. And all while this has happened, Warlock's starting to push in this wave, probably a tier 1 going down. Look at the damage.
Oh, yeah.
Holy.
And that is a Rod of Ages that is still stacking.
Yep.
That is a 1-item Vagar, ladies and gentlemen.
So we actually are going to see Chinese Spy trying to respond to this.
And he's dead. He's really dead.
Yep.
He could not be any more dead. Goodbye. As Big Rev is here now. Big Rev, are you also dead? Oh my god, I think he might be. He is going to be able to slingshot away and barely stay alive. And now the cavalry has arrived. So Seaboyer, is actually going to get pulled back by the Apprehend. The Death Realm does come out, though. And that is going to be enough to finish off Wok Warlock. Yes, as you say, a much-needed shutdown for the Mordekaiser.
That's right. And then we look at the cross map right here. What does the enemy team get in response? Aftershock chooses to grab that tier 1. They have that crash for this tier 2 bot side as well. It looks like they're going to get a pick mid.
Ooh, the flash into death for Fox Patronus. You hate to see it. Oh, meanwhile, the Herald charge, as you called out for us in the bot lane, and I mean, they killed Wok Warlock. They did manage to do that, but it cost an awful lot, didn't it?
It sure did. It looks like this might be another kill, too. Nope, not quite. Whew, that's close. So Bart's going to have to reset. Bart's going to have to reset here. The cage coming through.
Ooh,
Chain's not landing, though.
Yeah, close for Rutledge, but no cigar this time around. As that's going to be the Glacial Prison committed onto Big Rev here in the jungle. The Chain's connecting this time, and that is the Zack passive, unfortunately, going to get wasted. Last hit given over to Cocoa Puffs actually yoinks that one away with the flail.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, deserved, honestly. So I think we
sure.
give those to the jungler every time, right?
For sure. I won you your lane. I own it. I deserve this. You owe me this.
He really did earn that. I think it's fine.
Well, you see, right? This tier 2 now going down. The pressure in the side lane from coming in from top. Tier 2 mid almost going down in the process too. The dragon just spawns. It's going to put them on soul point at around the 19-minute mark. They're doing A-okay with this game state right now. As Baron is starting to come up now, expect Aftershock to start to swing a lot of their vision from bot side into top after they do secure this objective. Starting to probably play more and more around Wok here, and Wok's just done such a fantastic job with this Darius, and you and I both kind of questioned it. The Mordekaiser pick that came in from the R3, it's not that it was necessarily bad, but you leave yourself open to another hand, right? You have 2 bans, but if the enemy top laner like Wok, if he has that champion pool to be able to pick other things into it, like I just mentioned the Olaf, there's still plenty of other champions that came through, and in this instance it was a Darius. So now you actually get that counter pick on blue side when traditionally you should get that on
exactly
red.
right. Yeah, they did just get walked a little bit, as that is going to be the Stolen Spiraling Despair connecting on to Big Rev, who flashes away to try and stay alive, but the Alistar combo is going to finish off the jungler. Fox Patronus does go for the Enhanced Piercing Arrow, but it's just not nearly enough. Rutledge is so strong. just gets onto that Silas, gives him a big old chain to the face. Chinese Spy tries to flash away. He's also going down. Blast going away for Seaboyer. This is just feels like FBR falling apart, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is probably going to a criminal court case here. I'm thinking looks pretty illegal at this point right now. Chong.
Seaboyer going to go for the Death Realm on the Rutledge here. Silas back in with the chains. Obliterate will connect, though, and that is going to be another shutdown over to the Mordekaiser. R3 or no, he's picking up some last hits here. That's a double for the top laner. Death's Grasp not quite timed right, though, and Cocoa Puffs, the Fed carries Sejuani, gets in there, finishes off the Lord of the Death Realm, and turns that fight around for TFF. It's going to be a 2-for-2 in the end, and they're still going to be able to maintain control.
Yeah, all the meanwhile, Walk still pushing up towards his tier 2. Does have 3 members around the area, but I don't know if you want this fight, and I think they don't want it either.
Yeah, Walk backing away in time there. Not going to get jumped on by the Zac. And, of course, the Ocean Dragon did go over as well. That was the what Cocoa Puffs was up to before joining in to that fight in the mid lane.
And honestly, like, of course, you can make an argument he's a little late to the fight, but really he's not if you're taking the objective. But by the time that he gets there anyways, that Glacial Prison coming through, netting it on Seaboyer, excellent. Just pick up that kill right then and there. And now, again, you have so much priority here. You really can just start to kind of move into the enemy jungle, and you can see this right now as Chong and Rutledge start to set up here. Beginning to clear out some vision, but Rutledge is on a ward right now. Seaboyer around. Just a little bit of poke, really just jockeying around for this Baron priority, and the only saving grace from FBR right now is that this Baron has quite a bit of HP and they don't have a ton of damage, but it's still going down.
Yeah. Also similar to Game 1, right? The fact that it's not necessarily a great Baron-taking composition for the side of Aftershock, but it's not going to matter because the side of FBR just can't even get close to the pit. So that is going to be the Nash secured for Aftershock at 22 minutes, and they are just continuing to run away with this game number 2.
That 12k gold lead speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah, it becomes very loud. It's very loud gold lead.
It is very loud, dubstep loud. It's
yeah,
pretty intense there, and we have more fights here.
In comes the Silas once again. Let's bounce over the walls. Big Rev tries to create some more disruption here, and you know, Rutledge has gone down very low. He does not care, looking for the chains there to get into the enemy base. Not quite able to find it, though. Does manage to get on top of Big Rev, takes down the jungler, and look at Seaboyer trying to be the difference maker here in the backline on the Mordekaiser. Has Veigar trapped in there. He's going to be able to shut down Kaora, so yet another shutdown over to Seaboyer. They're going to be able to take down Chong off on the flank as well. So 2-for-1. FBR valiantly defending the base. The flash forward there for Seaboyer, but it's dodged away from as Rutledge manages to get to the blast cone and get over the wall. But Cocoa Puffs is going to have to get left behind here. So a 3-for-1. Final boss Rebirth. They're not out of this just yet.
Nope, not one bit. It really just does come down to Aftershock, just playing a bit too far ahead of pace from Walk Warlock there. Being able to pressure that tier 2 top is great, but at the end of the day, you don't have that teleport. You have the Ghost and you have the Flashes, that Darius. So the onus is on your team to communicate how you want to play around that, and they funneled themselves into a choke, and the fight was very extended. You can really see the 12k Goldie kind of taking things over there, but at the end of the day, if you're going to take fights like that on those terms, it's not always a guaranteed win, and in this instance, it's most certainly not. Now, of course, you do get the tier 2 top. You still do have priority on this dragon, and Walk says he's pretty interested in this. No pull back,
He's hungry for Zac.
No pull. He must have pulled earlier on. If he had it there, that's probably a kill on Big Rev without having that flash. So.
Oh, yeah. If he saved the apprehend for when Zac started to channel the slingshot,
most
probably would
certainly
have been
a kill, but
yeah.
I think we could safely assume he would have used that earlier just to gap close.
I think he did open up with it, yeah.
And now we can see right now this setup beginning here. Cocoa Puff's not quite synced up with the rest of the team. Chong gonna take a bit of damage here.
And be able to headbutt to a minion there. That's pretty cute from the Alistar and does create enough space to get him away from that pretty scary Mordekaiser. As Tempered Fate is going to connect on the Rutledge, who doesn't quite have flash just yet. Spiraling Despair as well, and they're going to just throw everything at him, and they do manage to take him down. So 5v4 on the map, a man up for FBR once again. Dragon and 40.
They have a small timer right now. The TP is available on the Silas, so they can still contest this. But whether or not FBR can actually get set up here, you can see Seaboyer backing right now. He must have his third item at this point right now, and the resets are coming through. So at this point right now, it still feels like this Dragon's in the hands of Aftershock. Nope.
Teleport's available for Mordekaiser, Wei, and Rutledge once he gets back from the Death Chamber as well.
I'm a little surprised we didn't end up pushing up for a bit more vision control there on FBR.
Oh no!
Blinker,
Oh,
he's gonna live,
stopped
but
over the wall.
this dragon's most certainly not, though. The entirety of the spot side quadrant is completely controlled by Aftershock, which basically guarantees this dragon. The one thing you can hope for as FBR is, of course, going to be that Elder Dragon. You have a bit of a lull state right now before anything really needs to happen, of course. That Baron coming up, that 2.5 minute timer is the next thing you really do want to pay attention to. So if they're able to get ahead of tempo of the enemy team right now, start cross mapping and push into the top side, get some of those wards out, maybe they can find a pick, but again, I feel like I'm clasping at straws here, Crewman.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like Rebirth could not afford to go for the reset there. I mean, I don't care if you have enough gold to purchase 2 full items in the base. You have to get some kind of setup for that dragon. I mean, Ocean Soul is one that normally we consider as being, you know, a little bit less powerful, right, than some of the other souls in the game. But I think it's got a ton of value here for this Aftershock composition. They've got multiple tanky members, a lot of people stacking health. And furthermore, you know, for Rebirth, a lot of their damage is poke, right, from the Wei and the Varus. And that's all going to get shrugged off thanks to this Ocean Soul.
That's right, and they did have that timer with that Silas being down. Of course, Rutledge did have teleport. We'll talk later about that.
Oh, man. Is that going to get headbutt pulved here? Big Rev. The Tempered Fate comes out, but the Bard, I don't think, is going to be able to save the Zac here. Did even have the passive. It's going to get wasted again, tragically. Meanwhile, on the side lane, Walk Warlock is in the death realm. I think that's exactly where he wants to be. Cuts off the Mordekaiser's head one more time. Flashes for the apprehend. The guillotine is true to its name. It's Walk Warlock taking head after head in this second games. The kills come through 4 for nothing. TFF Aftershock march on the base, and they will take the 2-0.
Oh, there's no way they don't right now. 4 members dead. The next closest one, 10 seconds. Big Rev. All 4 members here pressuring, or all 5 members rather pressuring. And look at the damage coming through. That's a kill. Poor Fox. It feels like you just can't play this game too much, can you? It feels like you cannot play this game.
That's pretty much how it went.
Yep, Cocoa Puff did such a good job. Such a good job this game. Now, doesn't have the highest KP in a 24 kill game, but it almost doesn't matter. Half the time when you're a jungler, it's not even about setting up for a gank, even finding a kill or an assist or anything like that. A lot of the times what it's going to come down to is, can you get those advantages for your laners? And that early on, that level 3 transition gank to mid absolutely garnered that for him. As soon as that happened, the Silas became completely unlocked on the map. Rutledge did a great job actually topping the damage charts, as a Silas is not something that you usually see. But in this instance, he does it here. And truthfully, I really do think it's off the back of Cocoa Puffs, how well he played the early game. And we talked a little bit about it, right? Zac does need time. He needs more time. Zac needs to be right around that level 5 mark before he can start to really impact the game as much as a Sedge. And if the Sedge can find that timer beforehand, you can, if you're able to pull trigger, you can do that. They end up pathing away from the Darius. It doesn't matter. Walk Warlock in that counter matchup on blue side does a fantastic job being able to play the champion, pilot it the way that he needs to, absorb so much pressure for his team in the process, and even buy so much time that his team is able to rotate up towards top and contest him, and contest the enemy when they try to gank him. So, I mean, both solos once again doing a great job here. I mean, it really does feel like that's just like almost like a well-oiled machine there from Aftershock. Like game 1 seemed great, game 2 seemed that much better.
Yeah, definitely the case. It felt like they did ramp over the course of the match, like you just said, Turk. You know, more convincing, I think, here in the second game. It was a little bit faster, right? They were about 3 or 4 minutes faster here in game 2 as opposed to game number 1. Walk Warlock, it's great to see him in action again. I mean, he probably was the strongest top laner in Plat League last season. So it's great to see him up here in Emerald. Same Walk Warlock that I remember, just an absolute menace in the side lane, pulling multiple members to him and just creating all this pressure. And, you know, Cocoa Puffs and Rutledge. You know, Rutledge was the previous top laner for this team, moving into the mid lane now. And you can really tell that these guys, the synergy is just, they were so on form tonight, really working well together as a duo. And you know, like you mentioned, it was so early on that things started going in their favor with this one, with that level 3 Sejuani transition gank. And they really were so successful in snowballing things from there, like you mentioned.
That's right, 100%. And I mean, at the end of the day, it really does seem like Aftershock has their team identity down. Looks like they like to play really heavily through their solo laners and then tend to draft more weak side bot lanes, and they did a great job with that. I mean, both games we see, of course, you see the Syndra in game 1, right? Really is kind of that just AFK wave clear style champion. You're able to pull that off, and then of course in game 2 you get the Vigar. So mage for mage, both games, both with the teleport, able to do a really good job playing around that and then facilitating all of the pressure that they get in their other lanes to take neutral objectives and really control the pace of the game. So I mean, you got to hand it to them. They did a really good job. They played the games well, and it looks like they're playing to their team's strengths exceptionally.
Yeah. Absolutely right. And for FBR, they tried to take away that Seraphine from Kaora, but it wasn't enough. Kaora had other stuff to bring out towards that bot side, like you were just talking about. And, for FBR, in a more general sense, I mentioned briefly, I think more towards the start of the stream, that this is a team that for the most part, for most of the season so far, we've seen them draft pretty explicitly for team fighting and like late game scaling, fighting around objectives, this sort of thing. And unfortunately, it feels like they may have been figured out a little bit by some of the other teams in their division. It felt like TFF Aftershock were really trying to push the pace of the game early and not wanting to allow their opponents to get towards those mid and later game stages where they would be a little bit more comfortable. And FBR, unfortunately, this does mean that they have taken a couple of losses in a row. They lost out last week to a Dynasty, which was another upset against Rebirth. And this does mark 2 consecutive wins for TFF Aftershock. So the standings absolutely getting shaken up a little bit here in the Noxus division as Aftershock rising and Rebirth, unfortunately, coming up on some hard times here.
Mm-hmm.
Taking a look at opponents for next week as well. TFF Aftershock are going to be playing up against that Dynasty roster, so that could be really huge in the fight for playoffs. And unfortunately for Rebirth, it is not going to get any easier. They're going to be facing off against the number 1 team here in the division, XG Ratatoskr. So another really tough opponent for them to try and bounce back against. We'll see what they're going to be able to get done in the week between now and then to see if they can make themselves ready for that opponent. But last really pressing order of business for tonight, Turk, is to award our Game 2 POG. Last time around, we were a bit split here on the desk. You giving it to Rutledge and me leaning a little bit more towards Walk. I think both of them had a great game again here for game number 2. They didn't make it easy for us. What are you thinking?
No, it's tough. I mean, it kind of depends on who you think had the most value for the team, and like that's a tough question to answer. Like both of the solos once again did a great job. So, do you want to give it to Rutledge on the Silas, where he played out of his mind? He did a great job. He had perma prow in that mid lane, right? Or do you want to focus more on the top side, where once again the Darius was constantly absorbing all the pressure for the team, all the time? 3-man gangs, 4-man gangs, 4-man gangs, over and over and over, and repeats. And constantly he's doing exactly what he needs to do. By his time, if he has to burn someone in the process, he does it, waits for the rest of his team to group up, or the rest of his team just cross maps and sets things up. So who do you give it to?
That is the question.
I don't know. I mean, I think for me, I'm gonna have to go Rutledge. Like, I don't know. I think they both did such a good job. Like Rutledge to me seemed like he really accelerated the game and played really well around the rest of his team. That to me is what really made the game. I think without obviously the early game or the early gank coming through, it might not have been quite the same result. But if you get the resources and you can pressure as much as what you can off of those, and you can do what you can do in that game right then and there, then I think I'd have to give it to him. How about you? Because you may or may not have a different answer.
I think I do have a different answer. I mean, Rutledge, for all the reasons you mentioned, is a great vote here, I think. Was on top of the damage charts again here, 2 games in a row. Rutledge most damage. Just narrowly beat out Kaora by exactly 61 damage in this game. Just a couple of auto attacks. But Rutledge did manage to get on top there. Absolutely got him. But me personally, Turk, I am going to go for the Cocoa Puffs vote here for this second game. I think
I can respect
the early gank from the Sejuani, sort of putting Rutledge in that position where he had the priority, where he was able to capitalize on that lead was key. And then the objective focus, I think, was absolutely fantastic from Cocoa Puffs as well. So
Yeah, he did a great job too, playing around a lot of the wave states just in general. Even the one time where they pathed towards bot side to try to set up the kill on Varus, it still forced him away from the turret. He still lost all the minions in the process, so it really looked like he was synced up with the rest of his team. That's a good answer, man. I'll give it to you. That's a good answer. And maybe I should have had Coco on the list too, because yeah, like really is the unsung hero. You take a bullet for the boys and you just throw on Sedge, give me the champ, I'll play it well, and he did it. He did a great job too. So. I think they all did. I think they all did really good, but that's a good answer.
Yeah. Sejuani is a champion who can often be underappreciated, right, in terms of what she does bring to the game. Not as flashy as a lot of other picks, but I think, really, there were no bad votes here. It was a tour de force tonight for TFF Aftershock. They played phenomenally well, both individually and as a team. And they picked up a well-deserved victory, their second match win in a row, as they start to climb up the standings here in Noxus and look to get themselves that top 4 spot so they can get into playoffs. But I think that's going to about do it for us tonight. Turk, do you have any final thoughts, any closing remarks before we end the stream?
Well, the first thing I'll say is, first and foremost, I appreciate being able to come on here. I think it was a blast. I hope everybody else enjoyed it too. So I think I'll say that. And the other thing I'll say is I did not expect the results that we got tonight, which is fun. That's a big part of League. That's what I love so much about it, especially casting, right? You come in and you have all these expectations, like, oh, based on the stats, it should go like this and this and this and this. Throw them out the window. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. Styles make series and they make games, and in this instance, if you can play that well around your solo lanes and you don't sack much in the process elsewhere, well, looks like you can make a lot of good things happen. So it was a blast to be able to be here, and I think it was a good time. So that's my closing remarks. That's what I got for you.
Oh, it was a great time. It was a great time. I love those remarks, Turk. You're absolutely right. It always does come down to what happens on the Rift, right? That's why we play out the games. Nothing is set in stone. All the analysis and all the predictions in the world don't really matter compared to what actually transpires in the gameplay. Although you did manage to get that one correct prediction there for game number 2. So good looks there. Speaking of predictions, shout out to my regular co-caster here, Katana, who unfortunately wasn't able to make it this week. But absolutely fantastic to have you, Turk. Thank you so much for stepping in. Absolute pleasure to cast with you for the first time in quite a while. So hopefully we'll have the opportunity to do that again very soon. From myself here, from Turk, from Alls, and the entire team here at Blue Otter, thank you, everybody, very, very much for watching. We appreciate every single one of you. Of course, tomorrow night, we do have the Plat League. That's going to be same time, same place. You're going to be seeing MZRY Obsidian going up against Obsidian Vice, going up against Conduit Prime. That's going to be tomorrow night. 7:15 Eastern start for Otter Talk, and of course 8 Eastern start for the game. Thank you again, everybody, very much for watching. See you next time. Good night.